What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to a Tuesday show, gang. Good to see everybody in the chat already, or at least a few of you. Colin's here, popping in for the algorithm, but I'm going to catch the lightning round later on. Appreciate you, buddy. Good to see whoever's out there. Good to see whoever's showing up in a little bit or catching us on super high speed later on in the day. Appreciate all of you. Hopefully everybody had good Memorial Day weekends. Uneventful on my end. Watched my New York Knicks get back into the series. That was the highlight of my weekend. Otherwise, covering some baseball. Staying on top of things. Baseball, basketball, hockey. All going on over at rotoscouts.com for under $1 a day, as everybody who's here currently probably knows. But hopefully you guys did eventful things, had some fun in the sun, etc., etc. Sam says, good day. Is there background where you live? I'm not sure what you mean, Sam. What do you mean by is there background where I live? I live in New Jersey, if that's what you're asking. Like the background on where I live? My background is I'm living in New Jersey City, New Jersey right now. Nice place. The city, not my apartment necessarily. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Big slate to talk about. We won't take too much time here in the beginning. Meant to say background noise. No, not much. I mean, there's like noise out on the street, but there's no background noise like in this room right now. Why are you guys hearing a buzz? Anybody else hearing a buzz or anything like that? Yeah, police cars in the background sometimes. Ambulances. There's a hospital like 10 blocks that way. So sometimes we get like ambulances roaring by and stuff. But yeah, it depends on what we're talking about. I've also got the windows are not open today. So sometimes we hear more screaming and yelling than if I have the windows open. First time in a while, I haven't put the air conditioner in yet. Just have like the window air conditioner. But after Memorial Day, I haven't gotten it in the window yet. It hasn't been that warm. We're getting there, though. I feel like it's going to warm up in a hurry. Ricky Lee says, all I hear is Judge double-dunging first two at-bats. I like it. Take the upside of that. Lone Wolf's here. Lone Wolf points out that Mr. Richard Fitz, the man whose name sounds like a joke but is not, is pitching today. Don't expect much out of him. I think we're getting like 3 innings. That's what he only made one rehab start, and it was only 38 pitches over 3 innings. So I don't think we're getting much there. But it does bring us over to the pitching board. Sort that by DK. Yeah, there we are. So you can see Mr. Fitz down here with the other guy who's not going to pitch very deep, I don't think, Daniel Lynch. He's been pitching in relief. Made a start a couple days back. Just went like an inning and 2/3 and then worked a third of an inning, I think, yesterday, maybe the day before. So we're not expecting much out of either of those guys. It is a very weak pitching slate overall. It's good that we do have a couple very high-end options and a couple of them at very good prices. That kind of saves the day because the cut line on this slate is honestly like, it's probably honestly there, but this is not all that reliable. And Seattle's offense is pretty good, and they're showing up in projections a little bit. I don't really trust Brady Singer in that spot against KC, but I do think he's playable there. Kolek is low ceiling, but at least capable, kind of in the middle, but he's overpriced on FanDuel, so it's difficult to make that work. Cade Horton, fortunately, is way underpriced for facing the Rockies in Wrigley with the wind blowing in. That looks like a dynamite spot on either site, but that is a absolute bargain on FanDuel. So it does save the day to have some very high-end options up here at high prices and then a couple workable pieces throughout here at either discounts or relatively appropriate prices, workable prices. I love Corbin Burns at a little bit of a discount against that extremely gettable Pirates lineup. Hopefully, anybody who played the projections yesterday was on Ryan Nelson. We didn't do a show yesterday, but I was all over that spot. I played 7 main slate lineups on FanDuel. It was more a FanDuel thing because that was the main slate on FanDuel. I just played 7 lineups because I was being lazy about it, but he was in every single one of them. Love that spot. I picked him up for this week in the Dynasty League because he has that start, and then I'm hoping that he gets one against the Nats on Sunday. We'll see how that one goes. But this Pittsburgh lineup has just been really targetable for DFS purposes, for season-long fantasy purposes. So getting a picture of Corbin Burns quality Love that. There are a couple threatening bats, but he's a little bit underpriced for the opportunity and for the quality of what the ceiling really looks like. He had a few really good starts this season. Love Tyler McGill at price, 88 on both sites. But before we go through the entire pitching board, let's just talk through the game environments. Lone Wolf stack Vasquez with Nelson. There you go. I wasn't as big on Randy Vasquez. It looked like a workable spot, but I was all over the Nelson one. And I made sure that the projection reflected my enthusiasm for the spot. So hopefully you guys got to it. I would have been raving about that spot on this show yesterday. With Tampa and the Yanks. Yeah, I had some Yankees in there. I had some Tampa in there. What else did I have? I forget what the other team I was getting yesterday was. Might have been the Cubs. I forget what the secondary team that I was getting it was, but those two teams were very much in the mix for me. I had some really, really solid lineups. Ricky Lee says, by the way, is Yarbrough the next ace for the Yankees? No. I can confirm that he is not. He might do well. I mean, we'll see how long they need him to continue starting, but he's just filling a spot in the rotation right now. Yarbs is also 33, going on 34, and has been around for a while. He's always been a talented guy, though. This isn't overly surprising. 3.06 ERA with a 3.72 xFIP. The strikeouts being up are is a little bit surprising. Pretty decent bump in strikeout rate, but we do see that with the Yankees quite often. So does he continue tearing through teams at a 20, nearly 1 in 4 strikeout clip? Probably not. Does he make a lot of extended starts? I don't think so, but he's always been a capable enough guy. Does have a huge strikeout rate, only 2 games, but yeah. No, it's a noteworthy. It's like an 8-9 point jump in strikeout rate year over year. But yeah. Anyway, let's dive into this thing. The Twins, the Rays, Twins bats looking pretty good again, putting up a pretty solid number there in the mid 4s going up against Taj Bradley. We've got Joe Ryan on the mound for Minnesota. I still have plenty of faith in Joe Ryan. He's gotten not really blown up. He gave up 6 runs all the way back on April 20th, had a very strong stretch, and then gave up 3 runs over just 5 innings, so it looked worse than it actually was the last time out. Struck out 4, walked 2. Not a great start, but that was coming off a run of 4 very clean starts with a bunch of strikeouts in them. Love the upside for Ryan. I think the Rays 4.12, 4.13 implied runs, not mistotaled necessarily, but I think his ceiling is also beyond what might be suggested by that Rays total. Jonathan Cannon going for the White Sox, just looking like a target for Mets bats 5.03. The Mets, one of the top stacks on the entire slate. The White Sox, not so much. Tyler McGill, as mentioned a moment ago, definitely a target on the mound, kind of an underpriced spot. Doesn't work particularly deep into games. That's the one thing you get with McGill, but tons of upside from facing the White Sox. 3.08 implied total, one of the lowest on the board. Red Sox at the Brewers. The Brewers are pulling a 4.4 implied total against Mr. Fitz. As mentioned, I don't expect him to go more than like 3 innings, 45, maybe 50 pitches, I would imagine is the ceiling. He went 38 in his lone rehab start. That was 3 innings. Breezed through it, only faced a handful of hitters. What was it? He faced 11 hitters over 3 innings, 4 hits allowed, struck out 2. Now, I guess he didn't exactly breeze through it if he gave up 4 hits to 11 hitters. But it wasn't terrible. But the point is, we're not getting much upside. We're probably seeing a little upside for the Brewers bats. They were showing a little bit of home run power. Down toward the bottom of the lineup, there's a couple interesting mixer type bats. On the Red Sox side, we know what we're working with a little bit more. 4.19 implied total going up against Aaron Savali, who's not terrible, but is also not overly stretched out. So I'm expecting maybe 5 and change from Savali. And then we hand over to the bullpen. Red Sox loaded with some upside bats and some cheaper bats now as well, but no Alex Bregman anymore. That's kind of a shame for that lineup for a while. But you got some interesting kids in there to work in around the big bats. The Reds, the Royals, it's Brady Singer on the mound for the Reds in a revenge spot. It's Daniel Lynch again going for probably 2 innings maybe for the Royals. and then handing off to the bullpen. That said, the Reds drawing a sub-4 total against that equation. The Royals at just a 4.15 and kind of underperforming expectations overall. I don't necessarily love either side of that game as far as the bats go. We're obviously not going to Lynch. I don't know that we tangle with Singer. He hasn't really been standout. He's given up a fair amount of runs in basically every game this season, except for his first one of the year all the way back on March 31st, which is a while now. It's May 27th. Wild. Season. We're at that point where the season's flying by, and then all of a sudden it'll be August, and we'll be talking about, over 450 plate appearances. It's just going to blink of an eye on us. Happens that way every year. All of a sudden, football training camps are in session. It's nuts. But anyway, Brady Singer, mix and matchy. Edman Marquez is definitely a target for Cubs bats. 4.85 implied total, probably not high enough. Just a 7.5 run total in that game. That's the problem. As mentioned before, wind blowing in. It's one of those Wrigley games that's bad for bats, but the Cubbies showing up for nearly 5 implied runs anyway, because Marquez, outside of his most recent outing, which was somewhat effective, and the one 2 starts ago, has been mostly a disaster on the mound this year, was absent for all of last year. He was a capable guy previously. The 2 7-inning starts, which again, one was against the Padres 3 starts back. One was against the Phillies in his most recent start. In the middle, he faced Arizona in the desert, went 3 innings, gave up 5 earned runs, 7 total, struck out 1, walked 3. Wasn't great for strikeouts, struck out 5 against the Phillies, 2 against the Padres, but was at least somewhat reminiscent of his old self in those games. So that, combined with the weather, maybe it checks down the overall ceiling expectations for the Cubs. Just might be one of those days the Cubbies do get their 4 or 5 runs, but maybe they don't get their 8 to 10 runs that you really need to blow this thing up. Blue Jays, and then the Rockies side is just looking like a total disaster. Sub-3 implied total, 2.76 in those conditions, going up against the rookie Cade Horton, who has been fine, 5 plus in the last 2 starts. So reasonable expectations for him to be able to succeed. Bowden Francis, definitely a target for Rangers bats, in my opinion. 4.08 implied total on the Rangers side, with all the power and all the runs he's given up this season and the lack of quality that he's provided through basically every start this season. I feel like the Rangers are kind of a bargain spot as far as stacks go today. Really like the upside for some of those bats to come through, given the quality of contact that they create and are creating even among their struggling hitters, and the quality of contact that pitcher consistently allows. On the Blue Jays side, they're going up against Nathan Eovaldi, who's been one of the best pitchers in baseball this season. I think we like Eovaldi a lot at the top of the board. Maybe their ability to clip strikeouts a little bit has an impact on his ceiling, but he's been terrific this season. He works deep into games. Basically every start is a shot at a quality start. So I love the option. 3.51 implied total on the Blue Jays. Athletics at the Astros. The Astros are pulling a 4.85 implied total against JP Sears, who can be okay from time to time. We can get an average to decent start out of JP Sears. We get very few real upside starts, and they don't typically come against lineups that are even the quality of the Astros. We do like some bats in that lineup, so we'll at least consider some of the righties and some of the upside pieces, and it is a very healthy total. Hunter Brown is on the mound for the Astros, so again, this slate peaks very, very nicely among the high-end starters, but it's very top heavy. Hunter Brown's one of those guys. Had a bit of a blip in his last start. That was against the Rays at Tampa Bay in that bandbox in the heat. 5 innings, 5 earned runs, struck out 4, walked 2, gave up 3 home runs. That's where the damage came from. That's that ballpark more than anything else. Hunter Brown is terrific. Carlos Rodon on the mound for the Yankees, going up against the Angels. Love the upside for him. 6 innings in his last start, 2-hitter, no earned runs, struck out 8, walked 2 against Texas. Comparable enough spot. I think that's a very strong upside for Rodon. And then Tyler Anderson on the bump for the Angels. 5.35 implied total for the Yankees, second highest on the slate. I think you know what to do in that situation. Anderson, not completely terrible, though. Out of pitchers that can go 6 innings, pitch a few clean innings, find 5 strikeouts or so against the Yankees, maybe 6, 7. There's a little bit there on a thin SP2 slate. Mitchell Parker on the mound for the Nats going up against the Mariners. There are Ks on the board for Parker, but he's not the best at going and chasing them. Been mostly tattooed as far as his last few outings go. Kind of like the Mariners bats there. So does Vegas at a 4.76 implied total. Logan Evans has the Nationals checked down at just a 3.84 implied total, though. He went 6 innings in his last start, gave up 4 earned runs on 6 hits. Managed to get through 6 against the Padres at San Diego, but gave up 7 hits, struck out just 3, walked 1 in that game. 0 ERA, but a 3.76 xFIP for that game. Should have given up 4 or 5 runs. So not a safe spot by any means. And that Nationals lineup does have some quality in it. If people are going away from them because it's a 4-run total in a bad hitter's park, maybe some bats to consider. Marlins at the Padres. Very low total for the Marlins. They're going up against Stephen Kolek, who has been perfectly serviceable. Handful of strikeouts, 3 earned runs on 7 hits over 6 innings at Toronto. This is obviously a great matchup. So matchup pushes him up the board a little bit. Pitcher's Park pushes him up the board a little bit. Solid total, win bonus expectations. The Pods are going up against Max Meyer, who's not bad, but also that's a very good Padres lineup and a bad matchup for Max Meyer. So 4.44 implied total feels about right for the Pods, but it could be another one of those spots where it just kind of evens out to, the Pods went 4 to 6 runs, but they didn't go for 10 to 12 runs. Pirates at the Diamondbacks to round things out. 5.56 implied total for Arizona leads the slate for implied runs. The Diamondbacks also lead the slate in the home run model. The Diamondbacks also lead the slate in the projection totals on both sides, and they're pulling decent value scores given the elevation of their projections. Love the Diamondbacks here against Burrows. Burrows, we talked about him in his last start. He was getting here in his first start, his debut. It was against the Brewers a few days ago on the 22nd. Talked about him being a target for bats in that game because of the home runs that he allowed, because of the power and the frequency of contact and the high quality contact that he allows throughout the minor leagues. And he was a little bit buzzy because he was cheap that day going up against the Brewers. Went out there 5 innings, 4 earned runs, 2 home runs allowed, notably 3 strikeouts and 2 walks, just kind of exactly on expectations for what we were seeing in the model here. Love the upside for the Diamondbacks, and even better lineup to go out there and tattoo him, and Vegas is on our side today. So love the upside for their bats. That brings us back to the pitching board. So there are usable pieces. Like I said, it's just that it's top heavy with kind of a distinct cut line there by 4.5, 5 points. On DraftKings, that's a little bit closer, obviously. But there's a fairly distinct cut line there, and you get some of these guys in the middle in pretty bad spots. Like this is Mike Burrows, who I was just talking about being a major, major target for a high quality Diamondbacks lineup. I don't think you're playing Mike Burrows at 55-68. He does have decent strikeout numbers in the minor leagues, but as I highlighted the last time out, the strikeout rate in the minors over 7 starts was good, but it was a little bit bolstered by a 4 2/3 inning 11 strikeout performance back on May 11th in his second to last AAA start. Every other start, he struck out 7 the start before that. Every other start was 5 strikeouts or fewer. Wasn't exactly working a ton of innings, so it was a good ratio and a good rate, but the depth wasn't really there. And now you bring him up a level, he's going to see fewer opportunities to punch guys out in the same kind of depth or shorter starts because he's getting nailed. Just don't like it at 55-68, not against the Diamondbacks, not when they're showing up like they are in projections. Evans, again, entirely shaky against a fairly low strikeout, high quality, at least at the top of the lineup, kind of interesting Nationals lineup. I'm more on the Washington side of that equation, but he's one of the better projected guys, and on FanDuel, that projection stands out a little bit more than it does on DraftKings, notably. Tyler Anderson, again, against the Yankees, it's just isn't the Yankees' day where they, you catch them every now and then, and they're swinging and missing, and you get a little bit of whiff upside, you get a little bit of strikeout upside. Anderson is capable of giving you 6 innings like that against the Yanks, but it's thin. 72 works a lot better as an SP2 on DraftKings rather than just using him at 83 on FanDuel. There are a number of guys above him that I like better. This is problematic given the quality of the Astros and what they do, but again, you could spike a little upside. That said, he's not the cheapest at $7,900 for that kind of a spot. I'd rather he was priced like Mitchell Parker. Bowden Francis is a pretty hard no. He was really giving us nothing this season. Doesn't project from very much. Cannon against the Mets, no. Marquez, even with the conditions on his side, very difficult to trust. At 5,000, I do think that's at least a dart that you could maybe consider. Certainly more so than Fitz, Lynch in what we know are going to be 3 innings. There's no reason that Marquez couldn't go out there and throw 7 innings today. The only thing that would limit him to shorter start is what are the quality of those innings. But at 5,000 against one of the very best lineups in baseball, the highest run scoring lineup in baseball, a lineup that has multiple guys with 14 home runs, multiple guys in the teens. It's a really bad spot, but it's a really cheap price. I will say that much. You can see where the projection is for yourself, though. Obviously, we like the Cubs bats a lot better. That's how low end that entire group is. Savali not safe at all against Boston. This is cheap for Savali, but he was bad through most of last year. After we came in with some decent expectations, he was bad and hurt through most of last year. He's at least cheap, but it's even with no Bregman, it's still a good Red Sox lineup with a lot of high quality lefties. Doesn't line up well, but from the mid board as an SP2, when you're throwing darts on most of these guys, it's fine. Again, Singer against KC, I don't really trust, but he's in the SP2 list. I'd probably rather have Singer at 75 against KC than JP Sears at 79 against the Astros or Jonathan Canning at 77 against the Mets. Maybe it's debatable with some of the savings on these guys, though. Not Burrows, but those two. Maybe Logan Evans. We get to better quality up here. Kolek definitely benefits from the matchup against Miami. At 84 on DraftKings, it's more playable. It's still not great, but he's been good enough to at least kind of justify that price as 6 innings against a really low-end team. You could see it. On FanDuel at 94, he's kind of low strikeout. So even that projection, I feel like it's a day where you're paying more to get around that median projection. And then maybe at the win, the quality start, and you kind of get there. But 94, you're not really putting a ceiling on top of it. And there are a few dangerous lefty bats in that Marlins lineup. So I don't completely love the Kolek spot, especially not on FanDuel. And it's not quite cheap enough over here. Max Meyer on the other side of that game, high-end talent as far as his stuff. The results have, been a little bit up and down through the season, but there's quality there for sure. It's just the quality of that Padres lineup and the things that they do well kind of colliding with his ceiling and forcing it down a little bit. And again, 89 on FanDuel. I don't love where he's priced. 82 on DraftKings, a little bit more reasonable. But again, between those two prices, there's no real difference between using him to target Miami at a little bit too much and him at a discount from that to target the Pods. This is probably the worst of those two spots. Taj, if he finds form, could easily pay off 7,000 against Minnesota, but they're looking very good on their side of that game, and I like some of those bats going against him. He can be very, very up and down, but that's a really cheap price for some strikeout upside. 86 on FanDuel, they're not doing you any favors to get there. They are doing you a big favor in this spot, going up against the worst lineup in baseball. In those great pitching conditions, they're checked down again under 3 runs. What reason in the world would there be to not go to one of the better pitching prospects in baseball? Great spot at 76. At 8,000, it's very playable on DraftKings as a higher priced SP2. You wouldn't be completely nuts to go 8,000 there and 80. I mean, this would be a dynamite combination, but that's not really overly cheap. But Horton and who's the best option here? Honestly, Horton Taj for that combo is not completely terrible. I hate the ballpark, but otherwise Taj probably has the best upside there. Anyway, a lot to work with through that mid-range, but also nobody's safe. Corbin Burns, a lot more high-end, I think, 97, 93, a little bit of a discount from the very top of the board. I do think you get a better shot at depth, a better shot at a full quality start on the FanDuel slate from Burns than you do for Tyler McGill for a little bit of a discount on both sides. I love the upside for McGill. He's a good strikeout pitcher when he's got his form, but he just doesn't work fully deep into games most of the time. That White Sox lineup could easily benefit him in that regard, though. He could easily get 6 against this team. Love Evaldi, just a low strikeout opponent. It's reflected a little bit in the median projections, but he retains his upside 10-4, 10-3. He's also very capable of giving you 7, even 8 pretty clean innings. Joe Ryan, the upside is very much intact. A lot of strikeouts available. It is a decent enough Rays team. That ballpark is not great, but I like Joe Ryan plenty. 99, 97 works a little bit also compared to the two guys right above him in projections. 10-1 at the top of the board for Rodon. 10-5 on DraftKings. Very expensive, but plenty of upside, plenty of strikeouts in that Los Angeles lineup. Also a lot of righty power to avoid, though. And then Hunter Brown going up against the Athletics. Their lineup got updated. Kurt's going to the IL, so one of their power bats taken out of that lineup. Not that that really impacts Hunter Brown, a very high-end pitcher. If you can get there at the price, I love it, but he's very, very expensive. Long wind up through an 11-game slate. We're going to make our way through. Where are we at? Ricky Lee saying kind of crazy how Marquez fell off the cliff the last few years. Yeah, I mean, look, missing all or most of last year. He pitched all. I think he was out all of last year, right? He made 1 start, 4 innings last year. 2023, he made 4 starts and threw 20 innings. The last time we had him healthy for 31 starts back in 2022, a 4.95 ERA, but a 4.02 xFIP. Had just a 19.3% strikeout rate. That was the notable dip. Prior to that, 23-3 in 2021, 21-2 in 2020, an excellent 24-3 back in 2019, 28-2 was his peak. That was in 2018. That came over 196 innings, also the deepest he ever went into a season. But he pitched basically full seasons throughout all those years. And despite making half of his starts in Colorado, that's a very strong strikeout rate. And he had a couple seasons in here, that 2018 season, the 196 innings, 33 starts, when he pitched to a 28% strikeout rate, just a 7% walk, 3.77 ERA with a 3.10 xFIP. That's as a Colorado pitcher. He was 23 at the time. He was very good. And he was a pitcher that for several seasons in there before the injuries the last couple of years, it was, all right, we're not on Herman Marquez necessarily as a this year fantasy option, but if you could book him in a dynasty league and just hang on to him until he gets traded to the Cardinals, let's say, or whoever, there was tons of expectation there. And then it's just kind of, like you said, kind of falling apart. Right now, 10 starts, 47 innings, I think by far the most important thing. They've been highly, highly unsuccessful innings so far, but it's just nice to see him out there working and looking to find his form. Still is only a young 30. So there's still, a little time left. So we'll see. But yes, has very much fallen off. Do I think Seager is back today? That would be awesome. I don't have him in the projected lineup. And I didn't check that. Unlikely that's Monday. Let's see. Is there anything new? That would be huge, obviously, for that spot. Jared Sandler 2 days ago said seems like a decent chance he returns Monday, which he didn't. Is this just a picture or is this a link? Not to grind the show to a halt here, but that is a good question. Yeah, all of this is just on the brink. We're going to have to wait until that lineup actually drops, unfortunately. Or till, Underdog or somebody reports it. Got a couple lineups in the meantime. We'll grab those as we dive in. Hit the like button, subscribe. But yeah, if Corey Seager's back, that just boosts the Rangers upside, and that would make the placeholder lineup that I have quite a bit better because I had money left over. Did they actually make the transaction? I don't see that reported anywhere, Ricky, as actually having been activating him. Let's see. No, they put Jock on the IL. They DFA'd Kevin Pillar, and they recalled Blaine Krim. So, as far as I can tell, they have not yet activated Seager. But obviously, that's a matter of paperwork. So, if they're low owned, so much the better. Again, I really like that spot, and that implied total kind of suggests that they might be. We'll get there. Let's get into game one here, though. What do you say? Twins and the Rays. This is game one, right? Yeah. So the thing working against Joe Ryan, in my opinion, is the ballpark, right? This ballpark definitely playing up some power. Going to be worse as the weather warms up as we get into the actually hot months of the summer, and it works directly against Ryan's negatives. The 14.5% barrel rate that he's allowed over 57 innings is pretty glaring. It comes on an extreme fly ball trajectory, 41.3% hard hits over the line, 90.2 miles an hour of exit velos over the line. For these numbers, that's actually a pretty good accomplishment to keep that under 4%. But we know that home runs are very, very wonky. That could easily be over 4%. One extra home run in the small sample probably would be there. It's pretty similar to his numbers from last year, but you can see that launch angle was slightly lower. The barrels were definitely notably lower, as was the year before. So needs to wrangle that. And it's really in 9 starts in 57 innings. It's just reflective of a handful of mistakes still. But this ballpark, to some of these hitters, especially from the left side, that could very much play for home run downside. If the home run comes with a few guys on base, that's the day where Ryan gives up 4 runs and doesn't hit the upside that you're looking for. But he's terrific. 30.6% strikeouts, a 3.7% walk rate, a 0.81 whip. Usually, sub 1 whips are typically in the 9s for starters, 0.9 something. 0.81 for a starter who's working deep into games. Phenomenal. 12.5% strikeout rate. You can see what Stuff Plus thinks of the arsenal. Going up against a team with just a 20% average strikeout rate, but certainly some targetable hitters in here. And then some guys like Josh Lowe, over 42 plate appearances. He's at 11.9%. Last year, he was at 31.8. The year before, 24.8. I'll buy that it's, the lower of those two numbers, but we're still half that. So there are strikeouts here. The Junior Caminero, maybe that's believable progress for him, but he was 21.5, 22, a couple few more strikeouts in the larger sample the last few years. So you can play that game back and forth. Taylor Walls at the bottom of the lineup has cut 6 points off of the last 2 years worth of strikeout rate. He's also a 190, 284, 231 hitter right now. Phenomenal targets throughout this lineup for Joe Ryan. So there is tons and tons of upside. And again, at 97, 99, he's a little bit discounted from guys that he projects at the very top of the board, projects 2 points lower than. There's no difference there. Just the ballpark working against him. 413 implied total. I'd buy it. Again, it could be a 4-run day against. It would have to really be him falling apart to be much more than that, though. Or just a few mistakes on home runs that happen to have guys on base. There is playability for that in the Rays lineup. Might be a day where they're better to consider for some one-off shares or maybe some small stacks, some secondary stacks around like the power bats. Some of those guys are showing obvious power, though. Brandon Lau, Junior Caminero, both over the magic number for home run upside. A couple of 7s and 8s surrounding them for some of their better hitters. It's just kind of a shallow lineup as well, but they're very functional. The guys down the bottom of the lineup can do things. They're cheap. So playable. Taj at 7,000, 8,600, 20% strikeouts, a 10.2% walk, doesn't really play well. He's been okay as far as missing barrels, but he's lost a few home runs along the way. 3.39 is fine. It's manageable. Last year, it was 3.81 on way more barrels, hard hits, and exit velo, all being way over the line. So that was more representative of mistakes. Stuff Plus has come way down, but the quality of contact that he's allowing has kind of changed. So there's some good in there. There's some bad in there. If you can find this kind of stuff again, this kind of strikeout result again, and continue to miss bats like this and miss premium contact like that, then we've got something on our hands. He's given away a lot of strikeout rate, a lot of swinging strikes in exchange for those gains, and I don't think it necessarily works well for him. 4.61 ERA, a 4.37 xFIP. He's not been terrible, but there's not a lot of extreme upside there. What he does have is a very cheap price tag. 7,000 on DraftKings is very workable for a pitcher like this, especially again if he finds form, finds that previous version of himself. 7 strikeouts last time out. That was over 6 innings against Houston. It's a pretty decent upside day. 4 hits, 2 earned runs, a home run to take away from some of the quality. Walked 2, struck out 6 over just 4 innings against the Marlins, but it was a bad day. 5 earned runs. Didn't come on a homer. Just 5 earned runs on 6 hits. Struck out 6, walked 3. Struck out 5 against the Brewers over 6 innings. Was effective, but gave up 2 earned runs. It tends to be the downside. You get a handful of strikeouts here and there, and then he gives up a few earned runs. He had a few very low strikeout games, and that's what's kind of impacting the overall strikeout rate. 1, 2, 3, 4 games in a row from April 17th to May 4th. He struck out 3, 3, 2, and 1. So 9 strikeouts over those 4 starts. He pitched deep into those games, 5 1/3, 6 innings, 7 innings, gave up a handful of runs, handful of hits, but there wasn't much DFS quality there. Now, that was against the Yankees, Diamondbacks, Royals, and then Yankees again. So there's an argument to be made that limiting their runs outside of the 6-run game against the Yankees on April 17th to start that stretch, that, again, that's that trade-off. I just think for our purposes, for DFS quality, for ceiling, we don't want a guy who's making that trade-off necessarily. So at 86 on FanDuel, that's looking like a fairly strong no against a team that is actually low strikeout. 19.7 this year, 20.8% last year. Actually, there are a couple guys that are slightly overperforming. Royce Lewis, maybe a little bit higher strikeout, but I buy the Twins more in the low 20s. Let's see if we got this lineup. We do have the Twins lineup. I think between the two, Taj is the more targetable of these pitchers. There we go. Yep. One of these days I'll go in and actually add him to the growing list of problematic names. The junior, yeah, see, that killed it over here. Why did that kill it over there? Oh, right, because the junior, which I took off of over here because of all the other guys that it impacts. So annoying. It's going to be a big project at some point to go in and unify the various juniors again. Oh, is it DA? Yeah. All of this once upon a time worked, and then Fangraphs has changed like 3 different times how they handle these. And it screwed up my if error changes for new guys that got added. All the old guys still tend to work as long as I make one change, but that's taking away the juniors on the daily stats board update, and then it impacts guys like this. But anyway, all that effort to get to a guy's stats who's hitting 121, 136, 172 at the bottom of the lineup with a negative 22 WRC plus. Not a great start for Deshaun Kersey Jr. here. Trevor Larnach, much better hitter than that up at the top of the board, 4,000, 3,000. Anytime we can get to a high-impact lefty like Trevor Larnach, well, it's difficult to say that about Cody Clemens, but the small sample is pretty decent. He's put good bat on ball, so maybe you could throw him into that bucket. But Trevor Larnach, decent quality of contact from the left side in this ballpark, should play up well against a pitcher who's not been problematic for contact this year, but has been allowing a lot of contact this year and a lot of runs. I like the upside for him, 9.57 in the home run model. You get Ryan Jeffers at 11.61, kind of a standout spot for the catcher, 4,200 where you have to play the position. Not a great price, but not a broken price either. He's hit 3 home runs, slashing 266, 360, 406. Perfectly serviceable, 352 xWOBA. Creating runs 22% better than average. Okay on the barrels of the hard hits. Kind of comes and goes with him, but there's quality there. Carlos Correa at 39.26 is just cheap for getting his quality in this ballpark. He's struggled to start the season, 238, 276, 363. A 317 xWOBA tells us those numbers will go back up. The quality of contact has come down in the barrels. He's lost a little bit of hard hit so far. It's not really striking out all that dissimilarly from the last couple of years, but the walks are down. 4 home runs on the board. I think there's a lot upside getting him at a cheap price, 9.91 in the home run model in this ballpark. Brooks Lee kind of miscast in the cleanup role, 9.2%. Barrels is what we're chasing there. Pretty decent frequency of contact given the low strikeout and fairly low to medium walk rates. 235, 282, 356 so far, though. 4 home runs and 142 plate appearances. We haven't seen much in the results. We don't see much in the underlying xWOBA over here. It's just about a small sample of batted ball events that look pretty good, but they've kind of gone away already. And now he's just looking like what he was supposed to be, which is just a low strikeout contact hitter who is not currently succeeding in those things outside of being frequent contact. Ty France is another one of those types. So far this year, 14.6% strikeouts, 4.9. Typically, it looks more like 17, 18, 20% strikeouts. Medium quality of contact. He hit 4 early home runs. He's been stuck on those, 253, 317, 360. He's playable in this lineup, but not overly appealing. He's just cheap. Not a great way to fill first base. 8.32 in the home run model against, though, playing off some of Taj's numbers from last year, playing up in the ballpark. There is a little bit of pop there. Cody Clemens for 35 at second base, for 25 at any position on FanDuel. Not bad given a 15.4% barrel, 66.7% hard hits, 4 home runs in just 64 plate appearances. He's made some good contact. Again, we are hunting lefties in this ballpark if we go here. So if you're going to this team, why not? But he's not a high priority hitter just in the full sense of the slate. As a cheap one-off at second base, on DK, he's like at the line of what I would want him priced. So I wouldn't really call him cheap necessarily. He's a little bit cheaper and more functional maybe on FanDuel as a one-off. Jonah Bride, Willie Castro, and then Kersey down lineup. Between the three, Willie gives us the most upside. He gives a good counting stat ability. Has been a disaster over 128 plate appearances this year, 2 homers, 2 steals, just 226, 305, 348, 13 points below average for run creation via WRC+, but he's a mix and match piece. What he doesn't have anymore, though, is multi-position on DraftKings, just another outfielder at that price in the outfield. Jonah Bride, I don't really want at 2,800 on the corners. Too many strikeouts. Last couple of years, it was 20.8. This year so far, over almost 100 plate appearances, is at 29.6. Has not given us any power in the exchange, so not really a fan there. And then Kersey just has been pretty bad. A few stolen bases, but getting on at a 136 clip, pretty unsustainable. If you're going to the Rays, again, you're kind of just home run hunting against the contact that Ryan is and kind of always has allowed. But there's tons and tons of downside that comes with rostering this team. And you probably should be looking at it as like, I'm getting maybe that 2-run shot out of one of these guys that'll boost a fantasy score in 1 spot, maybe 2 spots, but I'm probably not getting the full stack upside day unless Ryan makes too many mistakes. And then, obviously you're going to want it, but it looks more like a day where you're just picking off, small stacks. Johnny Diaz at the top, 42.29. Always a fan. Still no Rays lineup in. I love the premium contact with Diaz. 8.2% barrels, 53.8% hard hits. The numbers have been down. They still are 242, 290, 399, but those are results, right? We're not worried about results so much as the ongoing quality, the history with the bats. Everything else looks exactly like Johnny Diaz. Some of these numbers have improved. The strikeouts are down. Walks are also down, but we take that with a little bit of improvement in barrels with hard hits. 7 home runs on the board is just fine, but just a 157 ISO, 242, 290, 399. This is the most glaringly uncharacteristic thing. Somewhat reflective of his walks going down. Somewhat reflective of some bad luck with BABIP. All of that is screaming upside in that 350 xWOBA. Josh Lowe at 45.32. Between Lowe and Lau, I will take Lau pretty much every time. Brandon at second base. 4,100, 3,100 across sites. More upside for power. More true premium contact. But Josh Lowe is not bad in any of those respects. He's made dramatic gains again in the strikeout department so far this year. I don't think that's sustainable. That's over 42 plate appearances. He's been good, 282, 333, 513, 2 homers already. He's doing Josh Lowe things. I think you can easily get there. It's just 45 compared to everybody else in this lineup. He's technically a little bit expensive, but he's not expensive in the grand vacuum of the slate. And if you're grabbing 3 of these guys, it's, a fair average price. 3,200 on FanDuel, perfectly serviceable in the outfield. He does have upside, 8.39 in the home run model. Could easily get one. Lau, 11.9% barrels this year, 12.4 last year, 10.7. One of the better lefty power infield power bats in baseball. Full stop. And this ballpark very much on his side. 11.42 in the home run model. If I had to pick a guy from this lineup, it would be him as far as just picking the one-off home run. Junior Caminero at 10.67 is pretty believable, though. 8.5% barrels, nearly a 50% hard hit rate this year. Double digit, 11.8, 11.5% barrels each of the last 2 seasons in small samples. 9 home runs on the board. Scuffling as far as that slash line goes, but a 196 ISO with 321 XWOB. But even with the struggles for average on base, still creating runs 4% better than average. There's a lot of upside around Junior Caminero. He'd be number 2 priority. So I'd be looking at those 2. And then whichever of these 2 up here, or an extremely playable Jonathan Aranda for the home run upside, the power upside. The thing with that is these 2 are not the best on base options. These guys are much more likely to clear the bases of these 2 guys than they are to get on base themselves and set the table for Jonathan Aranda. What I love about Aranda, though, is extreme premium contact upside. 12.2% barrels, 54.8% hard hits this year. He's slashing over 181 pretty unappreciated plate appearances. 302, 381, 491 with a 389 xWOBA, 7 home runs, creating runs best on the team, 154 WRC plus. At 4,400, he's downright cheap for those numbers from the left side in this ballpark, again, against that quality of contact. He's also fairly high strikeout. He could be a good target for Joe Ryan. But if we're just home run hunting, that 7.22 reflects more of the 143 pretty empty plate appearances from last year, the 103 plate appearances from the year before that weren't all that great. But he's always shown the high quality of contact, and it's come through a lot more so far this year. We'll see how sustainable it is. That's why he doesn't get a big, artificial boost right now. But 7.22 entirely playable against this contact with known upside for more. I think the way to do it on DraftKings, as mentioned, if you're looking to 3-man it, is probably to take one of these 2 guys, one of those 2 guys, and then Aranda. You can go that route. And again, it's just for the reason that these 2 guys are right now, especially both sub 300 on base options. So if we're looking for Aranda's to be the guy to hit the 3-run homer, let's take one of those less than likely guys, and then we'll get their individual power upside as well. And we'll take one of the guys who's more likely to be on base, obviously, depending on what the lineup looks like. You could easily have Chandler Simpson in that top lineup spot, which would improve his upside. 2,800 on FanDuel, 4,000 on DraftKings. Entirely playable. He's stolen 14 bases and 120 plate appearances, slashing 295, 322, 330. Kid's living up to expectations as far as what he's supposed to be. He's a spark plug type player. He's kind of lost in the 7 spot. I'd much rather have him leading off or hitting 9th. Jose Caballero, 3,827, more playable on FanDuel with multi-position, including second base. Don't love him as a shortstop. He's fine in the outfield, but just another outfielder. You're looking for some correlated scoring. You're looking for a few stolen bases there with him. Danny Jansen, playable catcher bat with a little bit of home run upside here and there, but it's more spotty, a little bit of ballpark boost home run upside than anything else. And then Taylor Walls is just mediocre at the bottom. Joe Ryan, Twins bats, Rays bats, Taj Bradley on DraftKings. Clicked on the wrong Sox. White Sox lineup is in. I like the upside for Tyler McGill. Guys, good strikeout pitcher. Underappreciated, 31% strikeout rate. That walk rate is obviously very high, but again, if we're talking about all the teams in baseball against which it's unlikely to burn us or less likely to burn us, I think the White Sox are at least in the top 3 or bottom 3, depending on how you're sorting that list, obviously. 3.56 ERA with a sparkling 3.25 xFIP underneath it, inducing a 10.9% swinging with a 30.1% CSW. This is not outrageously surprising. This is Tyler McGill making gains on what he already was. 26.7% strikeouts last year on 12.5% swinging, 27.6% CSW. He had lost a little bit there, 18.5% strikeouts, but he was 25-5 in a small sample, almost 50 innings over 9 starts back in 2022. This is him meeting expectations. He's also working with a phenomenal pitching organization that is getting the best of him. The walks obviously need to come down, but everything about the profile says that they should at least be manageable. He's been okay with contact. 6.7% barrels is fine, but a little bit of happenstance is in that number. 43.3% hard hits is over the line when you're putting it on a 14-degree average launch. This is a non-tragic average launch angle, but it doesn't jive great with those two numbers, which is exactly at our threshold and well over. 1.41% home runs could probably be a little bit higher. Stuff Plus loves the arsenal. Definitely tons and tons of upside at 88 on both sites, going up against one of the worst lineups in baseball when they check in with a 3.08 implied total. Jonathan Cannon, there's no reason in the world to pay $7,700 on either site for Jonathan Cannon. 3.76 ERA with a 4.64 xFIP that's standing there saying, don't play me against a really good Mets team when they're pulling a 5+ implied total. 17.7% strikeouts against 7.2 walks. All this premium contact. He's gotten lucky to only give up 2.53% home runs. It's a bad pitcher going up against an extremely good lineup. Just play the Mets bats if you're looking to take something out of this game that's not named Tyler McGill. If you're going to the White Sox against, I don't think it's a great idea. What you'd be looking to do there is use a guy like Chase Meadroth, a guy like Mike Tauchman to exploit the walks, exploit the on-base and opportunity-based downside that Tyler McGill comes with. 135 whip is glaring against all of his other high-quality numbers. A lot of that is in the walks, the 10.8% walks. But Meadroth also has an excellent ability to put the ball in play. That's what he does. He's slashing 296, 387, 361 over now 124 plate appearances. Kid was a big piece of their return in the, trade? Lefty, Garrett Crochet. Got there. So there is upside in Chase Meadroth in the ongoing sense. 3,500, not ideal at shortstop, given the upside of most of the shortstops on the board. Guys like Francisco Lindor on the other side of this game. 26, when you can stick him at second base on FanDuel, works a little bit better for my purposes, which is looking at him as a discount option against a guy that might put him on base 3-4 times. The issue then becomes you need him for correlated scoring. Tauchman is another extremely high-end on-base option. So, like, let's say Meadroth draws the walk, works slaps one into right field or left field and puts a single on the board. And then Tauchman draws a walk behind him. Tauchman's excellent for walks, 17.9% over his 28 plate appearances that are meaningless this year, but 13.4 last year, 14.0 the year before. Those are over meaningful plate appearance samples, 350 last year. He only hit 7 home runs, slash 248, 357, 366. The on base at 357 is killer. Year before that was 363. But again, 8 home runs and 401 plate appearances. The slash line is decent on the front end as well, 252, 248. There's nothing wrong with being a 250, 248 hitter, but it's not suggestive of upside to drive Chase Meadroth in. It tells you that he's going to get to second when Tauchman walks. And then we're setting the table for Miguel Vargas, who's been fine this year with 7 home runs over 210 plate appearances with 181 ISO, but not incredibly appealing by any means. No actual faith that Miguel Vargas should come through here to drive those guys in. 9.9% barrels, 42.8% hard hits. He's one of the better options on this terrible team, but that's the reason they're terrible, because he's one of their better options. No faith. So that's an out. Andrew Benintendi. Yeah, 13.8% barrels over 112 plate appearances, but it's completely fallen apart. He's hit 5 home runs. He's slashing 224, 297, 388. There's no faith there. That's another out. Edgar Cato, 273, 351, 333, but 0 home runs, a 0.61 ISO. All right, maybe we got another single. Now we need Chase Meadroth, who is kind of speedy. He's stolen 8 bases to score from second base. All right, so the bases are loaded in what is now a bad inning for Tyler McGill. And we're getting to Joshua Palacios, Lenyn Sosa, Josh Rojas, and Michael A. Taylor. You guys know I love Michael A., but at the bottom of the lineup, first off, he's got to get there. This is just terrible. There's no Lou Bob in the lineup tonight. There's no threat. There's legitimately no threat on the White Sox. So Point being, you're getting a couple guys who are good at getting on base without the ability to score very much against a very good high-end strikeout pitcher. Much more love for the Mets lineup. Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Juan Soto hitting third these days, Pete Alonso, Brett Beatty, the guy I was looking for, Jared Young in the lineup, very interesting at 2,200, 2,000. Very, very cheap. Helps us get to Mets. The issue there on DraftKings, obviously, is the positional conflict with Pete Alonso. Not ideal. I used him as just a one-off in the util spot on FanDuel to round out a lineup. Depending on what comes out, I can make some changes there. Mostly around the Corey Seager thing. But that's an interesting bat to have that cheap. But starting up at the top, 55.38. Lindor, honestly, not fully priced. 10 home runs, 10 steals, slashing 272, 347, 455. The average is not fully where we'd want it. It's entirely results-based, and it's something you can completely ignore. Everything else is either at or better than expectations from the last few years, outside of maybe a little bit of barrel rate. But he still hit the 10 home runs in 245 plate appearances. Not like he's been off pace. 183 ISO, but a 352 xWOBA. 126 WRC plus. He's fantastic. You're getting him at a couple bucks off. Nimmo at 36.28, slashing 219, 279, 404. Definitely not great, but a lot of premium contact. 11% barrels, 52.7% walks, hard hits against a pitcher who doesn't strike anybody out, who allows nothing but premium contact. Get to the big lefty bat for the discount, 36.28. We know that Brandon Nimmo, somewhere in there, is better than this. He still hit 8 home runs as a 186 ISO, a 337 xWOBA. Monster numbers under the covers. Juan Soto at 5,100 is just stupid cheap for being him. 3,700, I know it's not cheap in a vacuum, but for him, that's several $100 cheap out best. 3,700 on FanDuel is closer to correct, but still 300 too cheap. Yeah, he's slashing 233, 361, 409. This is fantastic. 8 home runs, 7 steals, 425 xWOBA. I'm betting on the xWOBA. I'm betting on the number under the covers. 14% barrels, 55.4% hard hits. Literally one of the best hitters of his generation, if not the very best hitter, which is what I've been calling him the last few years, and he is. Pete Alonso at 52.38, 291, 392, 533 with 10 home runs on the board. Monster start to the season for Alonso. Needs to continue. At least the power needs to continue. It's fallen off the pace a little bit for the home run output, but still carrying a 241 ISO, a tremendous 424 xWOBA, 19.3% barrels, and 56.7% hard hits. Tons of premium contact out of cheapo Brett Beatty at third base, 3,000, 2,700. He's got eligibility at second on FanDuel. The results have been mixed, 240, 275, 471, 231 ISO with 6 home runs and 110 plate appearances. That's a solid lefty bat at third base for a very cheap price to throw at Jonathan Cannon. And then again, Jared Young, 22 on DraftKings, 2,000 on FanDuel, where you don't have to worry about the positional conflict. I did it again. On FanDuel earlier when I was trying to pull him up, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't find him, and it was because I typed in Jacob Young. And then I just did that again on graphs. So Jared Young, not a prospect. He's 29, almost 30. He's a lefty bat with a little bit of pop in 169 KBO plate appearances, and we all know what the KBO is. That was last year. Hit 10 home runs, had a 333 ISO, 12.4% walks, 20.7% strikeouts, 326, 426, 60 slash line with a 178 WRC plus. I don't know why it was only 169 plate appearances over 38 games. That was again last year. This season, where is it? There you go. Came back over, signed with the Mets, has been playing in AAA. In 97 AAA plate appearances, 5 home runs, slashing 259, 371, 506, 247 ISO, 19.6% strikeouts, 12.4% walks. In 286 plate appearances in St. Louis's AAA organization, so maybe that's what happened. He had an out clause and came to St. Louis last year. Hit 11 home runs with St. Louis's AAA team last year in 286, had a 221 ISO, 285, 411, 506. 18.5% strikeouts, 14.3% walks. Hit 21 home runs in 2023 with the Cubs AAA team as a 27-year-old. Again, tremendous walk rate against his strikeout rate at 268 ISO, slash 310, 417, 577. It's kind of surprising that at no point did this guy really get a shot until now. His largest sample of major league plate appearances was 23 with the Cubs. He made 47 plate appearances. 186, 255, 465, struck out 27-7, walked 6-4, hit 2 home runs and stole 2 bases in that tiny sample. He also has a handful of stolen bases every one of these years. We don't have to get too deep into it. The point is, or too late. The point is extremely, extremely cheap for what his skill set is against Jonathan Cannon. Let other people not know who that is. At the min price on FanDuel, not only does he make Met stacks work, he is a downright interesting one-off to make other stacks work. Whether that's at first base or at util on FanDuel, whether that's at first base just on his own on DraftKings. I don't love utilizing your only shot at first base that way, but I think there's enough upside in that price that you could do it. On DraftKings, he probably is more powerful as a Skip Alonso in a stack option, right? 1, 2, 3. You include the Nimmo option at 3,600. You're getting Lindor and Soto off the top. And then you probably just go Beatty and Young right there, or you could go Vientos, who I also love. But let's say we take the lefties against, again, a terrible righty for 3,000 and 2,200. So that 5-man, 5 out of the top 6 Mets hitters is 3,880 a piece, so 3,900 a piece. And you get Lindor, you get Soto, you get Nimmo. Pretty cheap. Vientos at 33, still 6.8% barrels, 44.7% hard hits. It's way off the mark from last year. It's way off expectations. He's slashing just 234, 307, 374. Creating runs 5% worse than average. But we know what the ceiling looks like. My expectation continues to be that he trends back up as time goes on. And there's still, at least if you took this and gave it a, I mean, all right, technically he's Lennon Sosa, if we're being honest. It's at least a little bit more hard hit. But if you take that and give it to a lot of other hitters, you'd be like, all right, at least there's some barrels there. At least there's some hard hits there. Not dead. McNeil, just a BABIP focused hitter, slashing 221, 349, 426. Correlated scoring upside, maybe, but pretty thin. Francisco Alvarez continues to be interesting at the bottom. Cheap catcher bat, 1 home run on the board. He only costs 3,000 again. Another interesting cheap way to access Mets bats. Grab him. He's not a great option as a pure one-off in terms of getting on base and resetting the table here. But if you are using a couple of these bats, then maybe they're on base and he can deliver something in that sense, which makes him more functional as a wraparound. So like, say you go to, we'll do the same thing. We'll do the skip Pete there. It's stretched out a little bit more. It's the same price, essentially, 3,900 a piece. Essentially, any way you stack the Mets, other than that, and even that as a 4-man, by the way, is only 4,850. It's a full 1,000 more per man for the 4-man than it is if you stretch out for another spot. But still, very cheap pricing for facing Jonathan Cannon with a 5+ implied total. Mets bats, Tyler McGill right behind him. Fantastic options, both, and then really nothing from the White Sox. Hello, Don Pla. Good to see you, buddy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Quiet day in chat so far. A handful of people here hanging out. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Really helps when you guys do that. Engage with the channel. Like, subscribe. Subscriptions definitely need a few more just to get it up over 1,000, as I've been harping on. I'll promise I'll shut up forever about that if you guys get it up to 1,000. Tell your friends. Leave comments too. If you got something to say, drop a comment on the video either before, during, or after the show. I won't see it during, but after the show, that also feeds the algo. Red Sox, 4.15 implied total. The Brewers, a 4.44 implied total, going up against Richard Fitz, at least for a few minutes. Neither of these lineups in. We do have, by the way, a lot of later starts. We start ourselves at 7:05 with Twins Rays, and then we get Mets, White Sox Mets at 7:10. But then there's a half hour from that one to this one. This one's not till 7:40. There's a couple in the early 8s, and then another gap till 9:40. And we have 4 games in the 9:40 range. So late breaking slate. Lots going to change. Don't get excited if you're winning early, unless you have a monster. I think this one's more about the hitting. 67, I think you could get away with Aaron Savali if everything breaks right. But there's a lot of options like that. So I don't really love the idea of tangling with the Red Sox, even with no Bregman. I'm a full believer in the prospects. I do think that Christian Campbell returns to form and finds it over time. I think Marcelo Mayer is a hitter. 3,200, 2,300 across sites. A little bit playable from the left side. I love Willie Abreu. Rafi Devers, Jaron Duran. Carlos Narvaez has been tremendous for this team so far. Another guy that was through the Yankees farm system. Somebody wrote about that the other day. Excluding Kyle Higashioka, there are 10 catchers either starting or on a roster, on a active major league roster, that were in Yankees spring training camp at the beginning of 2024. That's wild. Team can develop catchers. Trevor Story, Abraham Toro, Sedan Rafaela down lineup, if that's who we get. Mix and match pieces, but it's a big threat, and it's still a very deep lineup that's DFS capable. Against Savali, who's in his 2 starts, his 7 innings this year, shown us nothing but the downside. We're also not likely to get much depth out of this spot. He went 4 in his last start. I believe I gave him 5. Faced 18 hitters, give up 2 earned, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, allowed a home run. That was against Pittsburgh. Against the Yankees in his season debut, he only lasted 3 innings. He gave up 5 earned on 4 hits. He allowed 3 home runs. That was at Yankee Stadium. Last year, the numbers look okay, rounded out. 4.36 ERA, a 4.31 xFIP. Obviously, it's not appealing. But if you had this guy as your, back end 5th starter, just get me some innings on the board, you'd be like, all right, the guy's not good, but I'll take it. But that's not what we're looking for DFS. Even at these prices, he's very likely to give up 4, maybe 5 runs. Pretty vulnerable to the home run last year in a large sample, 31 starts. A lot of shorter starts in there. Again, 161 innings. The most concerning thing last year, the most disappointing thing, he saw a big uptick in swinging strikes down the stretch back in 2023. Had like 10, 11 really good starts down the stretch in 2023, and then completely fell apart for all of that last year. Lost all of the gains. And it doesn't look like he's got them right now, so I think we're staying away from Savali. Fitz, again, we're getting probably 3 innings here. He made 1 rehab start. That was in Double-A. He went 3 innings. He threw 38 pitches. He allowed 4 hits to 11 batters. He struck out 2. He walked 0. No runs allowed, but we're not getting more than that out of him. Even if he throws 45, 50 pitches, it's probably still just 3 innings at the major league level. So probably nothing to see here at 6,077. 18.6% strikeouts in the 3 starts he did make. Was pitching somewhat effectively. 11.6% swinging strikes is at least something to watch, but a lot of ugly in there too. So it plays up Brewers bats a little bit. They're not showing a ton of power, but there's some playable power here around like a Jake Bauers at 8.20 down lineup in the home run model. Rhys Hoskins, we've talked a lot about early in the season, and we like the power upside there. A couple of these guys through the middle, underperforming, but obviously have power. So fully believe in the Brewers around the mid 4s, 4 to 6 run game, easy to see. Maybe some upside to chase. They are fairly underpriced. They're also kind of underperforming. So I don't love the Brewers as a stack, but they're easily on the board. They rank stack rankings available on the site. They rank 16th by projection and bad value marks because of that. That's despite ranking 8th in Vegas. Not showing tons for power. Again, there are a couple decent power bats in there, but you can see they're not really pushing the mark up high. So I think they're playable, but not really drawing the attention. Maybe that makes them a little bit under-owned overall. They do have good options through the lineup. So getting into it, either side really. If the Red Sox come up a little lighter owned, I don't mind going that direction. Jaron Duran for 49.37 continues to be dramatically underpriced on DraftKings. If you haven't looked, he's back up to 283, 333, 439. Just a 156 ISO, but carrying a 341 xWOBA, making tremendous contact that is in no way off the mark from last season when he was immensely successful for home run upside, for extra base hits and run creation. This is a terrific option at just 4,900. Rafi Devers at just 51. FanDuel has Devers at 43, and they're not wrong. Devers has been tremendous this season. I know that there was a blip at the start of the year. Over now 254 plate appearances. Look where we are. 288, 409, 534 with a 245 ISO, 12 home runs, a 418 xWOBA, 15.8% barrels, 56% hard hits essentially. This is one of the better stretches of 254 plate appearances now in his recent seasons. He looks every bit the part of Rafi Devers. I get that he's not, incredibly cheap at 51, but that's way, way under the mark. That's easily $600-700 too cheap for the quality in this matchup. Love the upside for Devers. 11.67 in the home run model. Carlos Narvaez putting up a 10.8% barrel, 40.2% hard hit, slashing 297, 362, 478, creating a ton of runs. He's hit 5 home runs. Who saw that coming? Christian Campbell at 3,800 now, 2,800 on FanDuel, second base eligible on both. If you get him in the middle of the lineup, especially, love the upside. 5 home runs early in the season, just a 132 ISO, numbers cratering around the edges. As I mentioned a week or so ago, Major League pitchers, the book caught up to him. Now he's got to adjust back. That's what the next 200 plate appearances are going to be about. But the kid's too high end to struggle for long. I'm a believer at the price. Willie Abreu at 45 is too cheap. 13.7% barrels, 46% hard hits, especially when you can put them in with a couple guys priced several $100 off of their pricing. Makes it work really, really well. 3,300. It's kind of the same thing on FanDuel. He's underpriced. He's got 12 home runs on the board this year also. 256, 340, 500, getting on base like crazy. At 244 ISO, creating runs 28% better than average. Going up against a weak, right now at least, right-hander. Love the upside for Willie Abreu. 7.65 in the home run model. Marcelo Mayer, his first 12 plate appearances have been all right. 250, 250, 333. We'll see what he's got to offer. But one of their higher end prospects hits from the left side. Very cheap. Fills third base or shortstop for even cheaper on FanDuel. Definitely interesting. Trevor Story, all the hard hits and barrels are entirely intact. 6 home runs, 9 steals. The counting stats are good. Even the runs and the ribbies, not bad. 22 runs, 21 RBIs. Those aren't things we care about. Those aren't things that are at all in his control, but they're nice to have along for the ride with the scoring when he's at 222, 269, 325 otherwise. It's been very up and down, but there are things to like about what Trevor Story does. There's also a lot to not like at all and a lot of zeros. But you catch him on the right day, he contributes upside at shortstop for a very cheap price. Abraham Toro, mix and match quality at worst, 262, 262, 548 at 286 ISO. He's already hit 3 home runs in 42 plate appearances. We've seen him go on little tears for premium contact and power upside. He's very cheap on either side, plays either corner. You also get second base out of him on FanDuel. And then Rafaela was good for counting stats last year, otherwise mediocre. 15 homers, 19 steals, though, in 571 plate appearances. Turang stolen 13 bases, getting on base at a 339 clip. He hit 4 home runs early in the season. We've already created as far as the ISO, as far as any kind of frequency of power output. Still making good contact, though, overall. 8.7% and 43.3 on barrels and hard hits. In the sample of batted ball events, obviously that started out very hot and will probably continue to cool a little bit over time and normalize back more toward these numbers. But I don't think we're going nearly that low. So he's made some obvious improvements there. 344 xWOBA kind of reflects some underperformance as far as that quality of contact mashing up against some of the more recent results. But there's lots and lots of upside in Turang for these prices. 46 on DraftKings, 29 on FanDuel, pretty noteworthy, up against a nothing righty and then the bullpen. Jackson Churio continuing to struggle. 246, 273, 422, a 177 ISO, just a 289 xWOBA, way off the mark. 21.9% strikeouts, 3.3% walks. The walks cut in half, the strikeouts right where they were last year. It's getting difficult, but if you're going to this team, he's still one of the highest upside players they have. You have to include him. 44.31, at least you're getting a little bit of a discount. William Contreras at 47, where you have to play catchers, you definitely include him if you're going to this team. I don't know that it's standing out as a reason to go to the Brewers, though. He's fine. He's more than fine. I mean, he's underperformed his general talent levels. 244, 363, 361. A 330X, what stands out is saying that those numbers should continue to climb. So does his career history. He has created runs 6% better than average still. Still putting okay bat on ball, but not like what it's been the last couple of seasons. So there's some good in there. There's some bad in there. You're not getting much of a discount for the kind of scuffling at 47. At 3,000 on FanDuel, you're playing him like he's a first baseman, util spot, perfectly fine. Probably more appealing, honestly, on FanDuel. Christian Yelich at 43.31, priced down a little bit for the struggles. 205, 294, 364, but 9 home runs, 9 steals. 46.7% hard hits is right in line with the last couple of years. Barrels are down a little bit. Strikeouts are way up. That's been the biggest part of the problem. But I think he continues to normalize a little, at least as time goes on. It's too much talent there for the cheap price from the left side against Richard Fitz. Hoskins putting great bat on ball, 11.6% barrels, 46% hard hits, a lot of walks, a lot of on base at 387, having a very good season over 199 plate appearances, a growing sample of like return to form quality from Rhys Hoskins. 287, 387, 467, creating runs 38% better than average to lead this team. 7 homers on the board. If you're going to the Brewers, Hoskins is a priority. 7.51 in the home run model. Sal Frelick at 39.27, mix and match piece for average, for on base, for a little bit of stolen base upside, for some correlated scoring as well. Not a terrible option, but also in many ways just another outfielder. Caleb Durbin, a mix and match quality at best. 205, 291, 286 is not appealing. 88 plate appearances of Jake Bauers is much more appealing in the spot below him. 4,000 in the outfield. Not great price-wise as far as just discount hunting, but also not expensive for the upside. A lot of barrels and hard hits from Bauers over the last couple of seasons. You also get tons and tons of strikeouts, but he's a 3 true outcomes hitter. He's getting on base at a 341 clip right now. A lot of walks the last couple of seasons from him as well. And right now, 17.8% barrels, 44.4% hard hits early in his season. 3 homers, 4 stolen bases from Jake Bauers. What is it? Is that his high from the last couple of years? Whoa, Bauers stole 13 bases last year? I did not remember that. 3 the year before in 272 plate appearances. I didn't realize he was running like that last year. 12 homers, 13 steals last season. It's too bad he slashed 199, 301, 361. Could have had a better year. Be interesting, given the gains in on base so far, to see how that continues. That combination of factors now, thinking of him with stolen base upside added, kind of changes the nature of Jake Bauers a little bit too, because that adds appeal for a 3 true outcomes hitter. That's even more interesting. I hadn't really clocked that. Joey Ortiz, just mix and match quality at the bottom, a little bit of cheap multi-position, but slashing 187, 250, 253, entirely skippable. This goes, I'll just side with Vegas and the home team and go Brewers bats, Red Sox bats, but it's probably closer than what a 4.44 implied total against a 4.15 implied total tells your brain. And if you just said, take the team that has the 4 best hitters, I would take the Red Sox, if that makes sense. Like Devers, Duran, Abreu, and pick one. Maybe it's 3. Pick the team with the 3 best hitters. Those 3 over Jackson Chourio, William Contreras, Christian Yelich, especially the way Yelich is playing right now. But you could also go deeper with the Brewers by adding Bryce Turang, Rhys Hoskins, maybe a little Jake Bauers, maybe even a little Sal Frelick. So like they're more maybe a 5-man, maybe it's more a 3-man here, but I don't want to tear down the quality of like the Mayer, Campbell, Narvaez options. Those guys are very much on the board. Interesting back and forth between these two teams. Really don't want any part of either pitcher. You're not getting enough innings and you're not getting enough quality, even at price. Let's get some activity in the chat. Drop some questions in. Say hello if you're out there. Quiet day in the chat. Kansas City Royals with Daniel Lynch, the 4th. Of course, the 4th is in there. That needed no change for reasons. 12.9% strikeout rate, 10.8% walks in, 22 2/3, mostly out of the bullpen this season for Mr. Lynch. 1.19 ERA, has been entirely lucky. 5.08 xFIP under the surface. That's more who Danny Lynch is. Last season, 22.4% strikeouts and 43 1/3, 3 starts, mostly relief work, 3.32 ERA, 4.32 xFIP. 12.7% swinging, 22.4% strikeouts with a 30.9% CSW, mostly working at max effort. Been a little bit difficult to justify very much quality in the lefty. And again, we're probably getting him for like 2 innings. I think that's what, 2 innings is what I gave him. Inning and 2/3 in his lone start, heavy air quotes, of the season. That was the other day on the 21st against San Francisco out in California. Inning and 2/3, faced 9 hitters, did well, 1 hit, struck out 2, walked 3 problematically, and then pitched 3 days ago, but just for a third of an inning, he faced 3 hitters. He gave up an earned run, no hits, but 2 walks. Took the loss. We're just not getting more than 2 innings here. That's what he's maxed out at for the season. If he goes 3, you're still not getting there at 62, 66, and the Reds have too much upside in general. It's not really showing in their implied total. It's just 3.94. This game does have a little bit of weather in the area. Roth had a green, yellow. I didn't go through any of the weather spots just because everything is green with 2/yellows. One is in Tampa where it'll just blow past because it's Florida, and then they'll play if it rains at all. Mets is fine. The wind's blowing out for the Mets, by the way, against Jonathan Cannon. Bonus. This one should be fine, but it's rainy. As he says, they played yesterday in 3 hours of nonstop rain, so I think they can handle a stray sprinkle. And then the game at Wrigley is cold, wind blowing in, etc., etc. So maybe a little bit of conditional impact on that low total for the Reds. They're also not great, but they do have some upside bats for our purposes, especially when facing a pitcher like this. The interesting spot in this one is Brady Singer. Revenge game, 7,500. And again, I don't mean revenge game in any actual sense. It's not at all tangible. There's very little in his control that wouldn't otherwise be in his control in a normal spot, but it is his former team. 4.88 ERA, a 4.40 xFIP at a Singer, 20.8% strikeouts, 10% walks. This looks very much like Brady Singer over time. You can get the occasional upside start. Last year, 3.71 ERA with a 3.62 xFIP, 22.3% strikeouts, a 10+% strikeout rate over 32 starts, 179 and 2/3. Year before, nearly a 19% strikeout rate, but a 5.52 ERA with a 4.28 xFIP. Again, this is just very much who Brady Singer is. You catch him on the right day, you can find some upside, but this is a relatively or pretty aggressively low strikeout opponent in the Royals. I just come down more on the side of their bats. So does Vegas at a 4.15 implied total. I think there's playability in Singer, more so at 75 on DraftKings. He is definitely firmly in that mid-range of cheaper SP2s. Not fully cheap, but cheaper. 8,000 on FanDuel, you're really playing with fire if you roster that. There are cheaper pitchers that we like better on FanDuel today. If we're going to Reds bats, let's see if we got the lineup. We do. Red Sox came in as well. I believe it is identical to what we were looking at. It is. Reds bats are in. Looks also pretty similar. Kudos to or shout out, to put it in terms that somebody born in the last 100 years would actually say. Shout out to whoever has been doing the projected lineups over at Labs this year. I don't know if it's a new person or if the person who has done it has just, as you do, gotten better with experience, but they've been really on point this year. Couple hit and miss spots, but I mean, they've been markedly improved in my opinion. As you can see with this lineup being essentially what was in there. TJ Friedl, 4,500, 3,000, 289, 372, 406 over 227 plate appearances. Stolen 8 bases. More importantly, just getting on base very regularly, creating runs for this team, 115 WRC+. Friedl's always in play. It's just, he's kind of also just another outfielder at the $4,500 and the $3,000 price. Those are at the absolute ceiling of what I would want to pay for a TJ Friedl. He's low strikeout. He gets on base again. He's a run creator, but he's a correlated scoring guy. Not a ton of individual upside. 6.27. He's not completely dead in the home run model either, though. But you can see a pretty much lack of barrels and hard hits over the last few seasons. Santiago Espinal fills all of those same descriptors. 273, 333, 325. Not much of a bat other than getting to first base. But then you get into some guys who do have elite power upside, like Elly De La Cruz. 12.2% barrels, 46.3% hard hits. Looks a lot like last year's numbers out of Elly. 12-7, 45-7 last year. 9 home runs, 17 stolen bases, one of the league leaders in steals, over 240 plate appearances, 251, 325, 414, 324 xWOBA. Probably underperforming in the power department, given just a 163 ISO this year. Last year, that was a 212 on very similar contact. He hit 25 home runs in nearly 700 plate appearances, stole 67 bases while getting on at a 339 clip. He's lost a little bit in the on-base department. The average is right around where it was. The run scoring doesn't really look off pace if we care about runs. The RBIs that's up. He's driven in 38. Last year, he drove in 76 despite the 25 home runs in way more plate appearances. That's a good pace as far as a lot of these numbers in just the raw counting stat sense for Elly. 324 xWOBA tells us that like this production is just kind of right in line with where he ought to be. It's just an average xWOBA. His run creation number also, that's a point below average by WRC plus. A lot of strikeouts, but that's an improvement from 31.3 last year, 33.7 the year before, while not really losing anything from walk rate, half a point. There's a lot to like about Elly's season so far. 3,900. I'm talking about him like he's underpriced for the production. He's actually overpriced for the production he's given us. But he's not overpriced for the talent, for the quality. There is a lot to like about Elly this season. 5,000 for Austin Hayes feels really expensive. 35 on FanDuel. I get that he's had a good 122 plate appearances. He's always been a decent bat. This is one of the better stretches of 122 plate appearances that he's put up in his entire career. 321, 361, 589. It's probably the best, full stop. 12.8% barrels, 44.2% hard hits. You can see the barrels are double last year, up several points from the year before. So are the hard hits. Strikeouts right in line with where they were. Walks similar to where they were. So it's just a really strong stretch from a guy who's always been capable of putting bat on ball. But you don't want to pay for the quality that he's put up over those 122 that already happened. You're paying for sustainability. Right now he's carrying a 365 xWOBA that does say we've got some sustainability here, that it's real. It's difficult to see. 255, 303, 396 last year, and 255 with 5 home runs. The year before, a much more healthy sample, 566 plate appearances. He was a 275, 325, 444 hitter. 582 the year before that, 250, 306, 413, 16 home runs both those seasons. That's who Austin Hayes really is. Each of those seasons included probably shorter stretches, but stretches of quality like this. That's how you get to those numbers in, it's baseball. So there's a lot of zeros and bad days in there. So you need stretches like this to bring those numbers up. My money's on, if you gave him another 400 plate appearances, we normalize back toward that 250 guy. But he's been undeniably good. Between the Reds facing a weak lefty to start the game and then the bullpen, he's one of the more appealing bats they have. Just know that you're paying through the nose for him. Tyler Stevenson, a lot of barrels, a lot of hard hits out of the catcher. That's in line with expectations, not to that level, but the price hasn't gone up with commensurate with the quality over 77 plate appearances. The results haven't been great at 209, 312, 373, but the contact's been killer. He's hit 2 home runs. He's always good for power upside, and he's still cheap at 3,800 despite some excellent premium contact. Spencer Steer, Gavin Lux, Jose Trevino, mix and match pieces but all quality mix and match guys. Right now, Gavin Lux probably the most appealing at 292, 384, 410. Creating runs 21% better than average. Still very cheap, 27 with second base eligibility on FanDuel. 35 on DraftKings. He's really just another outfielder over there. He's more appealing on the blue side. Trevino is a mix and match quality catcher. 298, 333, 500, 3 home runs on the board, 202 ISO. He's not that good a bat. We've seen him for several seasons now. He's always been low strikeout, medium walk, so you get some okay contact. He will hit the occasional homer, but he's not much of a hitter. He's here for his defense behind the plate, for his pitch framing abilities. Will Benson is a tremendous bat. 5 home runs that all came in like his first 5 games of the season since rejoining this team. He's already cooling off. 277, 333, 660, 383 ISO, 24.3% barrels, 59.5% hard hits. By the time we get to Will Benson, Daniel Lynch is either blown up already or out of the game already because of the pitch count. So you'll probably get him against a few right-handed opportunities here. Love the upside at 39. 3,000 FanDuel already priced him up a little bit, but he can pay that price off pretty easily. Just not an ideal spot in the lineup. He honestly should be hitting up here somewhere, and you just ride the low-end performances. Royals bats. Jonathan India continues to just kind of bounce around. A 325 on base is pretty pedestrian for him, but it's still decent quality. He hasn't seen anything from it, though. 80 WRC plus. The xWOBA being above that number, being dramatically above his performance so far, tells us that he'll eventually round into form. We're just waiting very patiently for that to actually happen. He's also only hit 1 home run. He hasn't stolen any bases. Weird season for Mr. India. Bobby Witt Jr.'s projections are not coming up either. This is really starting to bother me. Him we should be able to just put in here as Bobby Witt. Maybe it's the Labs lineup. There's Bobby Witt. Doesn't have it on FanDuel. Oh, you know what it was? I think their lineup came out on Twitter before Labs, and I just typed it in, so I added the junior myself. That one's on me. Bobby Witt Jr., either way, 59, 4,000. Tremendous priority at shortstop if you're going to this team. No reason in the world not to play him against Brady Singer. Singer's allowed an 11.8% barrel, 43.4% hard hits, 91 miles an hour of exit velo. This guy stood there and watched Brady Singer pitch for a little while in his career. Definitely like the upside for Bobby Witt. 8.26 in the home run model. He's hit 5. He's also stolen 19 bases, creating runs 26% better than average. Tremendous player. Vinny Pasquantino has gotten ludicrously cheap at 3,400, 9.2% barrels and 44.5% hard hits. The hard hits are in line with last year. They're exactly what we expect from this hitter. The barrels are up and reflect the gains we've been looking for from this hitter over the last couple of seasons. Strikeouts are up at 18% and walks are slightly down from 7.2 last year, 9.6 the year before. But that strikeout is gradually coming back down to expectations. He's up to 258, 303, 408. We're making strides with Vinny Pasquantino. He's up to 334 in the xWOBA department. That's incredibly encouraging. Tells us everything we know about Vinny Pasquantino is once again going to be true. He's hit 8 home runs. He's been on a tear over his last 100 some odd plate appearances. Can we do this easily? We're back to it's a little back too far. Where'd the home run output start? Let's say. Still haven't mastered this shift click thing on graphs. Here we go. Last 123 plate appearances. So a pretty sizable chunk of what we've seen. It's essentially half his how many has he made? He's made it's essentially half his plate appearances now. Since April 25th, since my birthday. Player I love, giving me what I'm looking for. 17.1% strikeouts against just 2.4% walks. So a ton of high quality balls in play. All 6 of his 8 home runs, 15 runs, 15 ribbies. Again, not something he can control. Most importantly, slashing 319, 341, 496 over that stretch. A 365 WOBA, a 134 WRC plus. Safe to say, Vinny Pasquantino is essentially back and been back for a few weeks now. So he's just cheap. Lefty righty going up against Brady Singer. Nothing not to like about Vinny at 3,400. That's a really glaring discount. Same thing on FanDuel, 2,900. It's a hitter we really like. I'm going to try and trade for him. Sal Perez, 3,200, 2,700, 4 home runs on the board, in 212 plate appearances. Really underwhelming results. 69 WRC plus. Appearing on some bad lists that you don't want to be on with names that you would never, ever group Sal Perez with. Everything's going to be fine. 364 xWOBA tells us that. 13.7% barrels is up from last year. 47.1% hard hits is up from last year. Strikeouts are up a little bit, but we're talking about 2.5 percentage points, and it's still a good strikeout rate for the power exchange. 6.76 in your home run model. He's just cheap on DraftKings at 3,200, where you have to play catchers. 2,700 on FanDuel. He's a high priority bat against Brady Singer. Let's leave India out of it. We'll go 2, 3, 4. And then a cheap Michael Massey. If you wanted to go 5, it brings it to 39. Let's leave Massey out of it. What if it was a 4-man? 42-25 apiece for Witt, Pasquantino, Perez, and Michael Garcia, who's been absolutely tremendous all season. 218 plate appearances now, 309, 373, 469. Creating runs 36% better than average to lead the team. One of 2 players on this team creating runs at a better than average clip so far. Some of that will change. Drew Waters mix and match quality in the outfield, 281, 319, 398, but not a lot of individual upside. John Rave I wanted to look up, but did not. Rave is 27 and change. Lefty bat in 202 AAA plate appearances this year, had 9 homers, 17 steals. Last year in 578 plate appearances in AAA as a 26-year-old, 21 homers, 17 steals, /259, 346, 470. Had a 211 ISO, 21.6% walks, strikeouts, a lot of walks. Another reasonably good like quad A type option, along with what's his face, Young from the Mets, in the same spot in the lineup for the dead min on FanDuel. In the outfield, I don't know. Plays up just as strong. On DraftKings, he wasn't eligible when I put the salaries in. He might have gotten added. We'll take care of that later on. Playable at worst, just helps you average down the price. Just not ideal. We're only taking 4 anyway. You kind of just want the 4 quality bats. Michael Massey, 26-26, 2 home runs. We've lost quality with Massey in terms of the premium contact, but he's been low strikeout, low walk. So you're still getting a lot of lefty contact there, and the quality should eventually come back. There's just nothing over here that really justifies actually saying that. Kyle Isbell's always just mediocre. Royals bats, Reds bats. Brady Singer darts at 75 on DraftKings, perfectly fine. This is where I really question it. Just again, because on FanDuel, like, if I'm going to spend $8,000 on a pitcher, I'll spend 76 on Cade Horton against Colorado instead. Singer a few spots removed, or I'll find another 800 and go to Tyler McGill against the White Sox. Ooh, 455. We are taking our time with this one, huh? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you get a chance. Appreciate you. There's some people in the chat. Carlos Soto, what's going on, buddy? Dimitri, good to see you. Tango Hotels here, debating with himself about Rodon or McGill. Either way, you're talking about the highest upside individual projection with one of those guys, and then you're talking about a very talented strikeout pitcher with a few obvious flaws going up against one of the worst lineups without one of their best individual players in it, with Lubob being out of the lineup there. Love it either way. Matchups upside certainly goes to McGill. Talent is honestly not all that far off. Greg Biancone says, Terry, you think baseball is the hardest to project? Yes. They're the most complex. Also, just depending on what you're looking for, right? There's a difference between projection and prediction, obviously, right? So the rate at which you succeed with baseball is notably lower than the rate in let's say basketball, where you just basically need to be on their rates of productivity, X over Y minutes. Basketball being the easily most straightforward. But yeah, I would say that baseball is, and it's also can be, if you're not going well, kind of the most like, man, do I feel lost right now. Fortunately, if you have a good model like this that's nice and reliable over time, you know that you can, as long as you're keeping the maintenance up and doing the updates that you need to and everything, you should be able to drop things in, and you'll see it. We'll go through bumpy stretches throughout the season. Went through one already with the home run picks in the like 10 days into the season. I hit a little bit of a stretch there, and the home run picks come and go, and that happens, but it's rough getting into the beginning of the season. So yeah, there can be more frustrating days with baseball. Football's incredibly straightforward. It is a rate and events based, like the difference being, baseball in many ways is very event based, and those events are very random and few and far between with, individual predictability over volume. Football has some of that, and I talk about that when we do football shows and breakdowns, where like running backs are essentially rate and volume, but wide receivers and passing, I think, works more functionally if you look at it in an event-based nature. All right, wide receiver X, you're going to see 8 targets of Z of Y distance and Z quality of throw. So there are more compounded things going into the passing part of football, but you get a little bit of ease off around some of the quarterback performance, and then most specifically around the running backs. Basketball, again, incredibly easy. Honestly, I could show anybody how to do basketball projections in 5 minutes. So easy. And then hockey is very much like baseball. Hockey's probably number 2 as far as the hardest among the 4 major sports. NASCAR, I have no idea. Golf, I don't really have my head around how to project it. I feel like I could make a pretty good golf model pretty easily. But yeah, hockey works very much like baseball, where goalies are pitchers, lines are, chunks of the order you want to stack. You're looking for those correlated events on, an assist to a goal on a power play is essentially like a 3-run home run. It's basically the same idea. My hockey model works the most like the baseball model. It's actually originally based on this file. After which I took it and put it into a new file, thankfully, because this has way too much nonsense in it. Anyway, that is not helping us on time. The Rockies. Not a lot of reason to go to the Rockies. They are showing a little bit of power against an inexperienced pitcher who's made 2 starts, gone 14 1/3, given up several home runs. Not really found his strikeout stuff, but is an effective kid. Has a 10.9% swinging strike rate in the show so far. It's resulted in just 15.9% strikeouts, 4.8% walks. But going up against this lineup that should push that way up in terms of exploiting those swinging strikes, he should find success for strikeouts here. If you're going to the Rockies, you're playing a team that's carrying a sub-3 total in bad, markedly the worst hitting conditions on the slate as far as the way this ballpark plays in these conditions. So that's one of the reasons their total is so low. Normalized dead even ballpark day, that would probably be more like a 3.5 total for the Rockies. So know that some of that is playing in here, but you would want to prioritize Hunter Goodman, Ezekiel Tovar, Jordan Beck in your top 3 spots, and then it's probably just a 3-man, honestly, around those 3 guys as your highest priority bats. I don't completely hate Brenton Doyle, Mickey Moniak, Michael Talia. Any one of those guys could give you some good counting stats. Any one of those guys could drive the ball today, but it's getting thin for all those guys. Talia most notably at 199, 270, 364, 6 homers, a 60 WRC plus, and a very concerning 279 xWOBA. 9.9% barrels, 40.6% hard hits, cratering around the edges, and way down from last year's numbers. Mickey Moniak maintaining decent contact. 9.3% barrels, 48.6% hard hits. I know those are similar to what I just said about Talia, but you don't expect as much upside in those departments from Moniak. So for him, those are very good numbers. 5 home runs, but the slash line has been really mediocre. The xWOBA at 324 tells us we should see some normalization. He's probably the most, in a long-term sense, trustworthy out of that group. Brenton Doyle right there with him at a 325 xWOBA too, though. 213, 276, 337 out of him. A lot more barrels, 13.6%, 44%. He probably represents the best blend of the 3 between long-term viability and individual just daily upside with premium contact. Any one, but probably not all three if you're stacking Rockies. Ryan McMahon is in there. He's slashing 207, 329, 358, just waiting to hear who he gets traded to. There are barrels. There are hard hits from the left side against a young right-handed pitcher. Wouldn't surprise me at all if Ryan McMahon had an okay day. But again, we're hitting into the wind. We're hitting in bad conditions here. So it's just not appealing. Down lineup, Nick Martini, Adil Amador, mix and match pieces at the absolute best. Tovar's been good over his 113 so far, made some definite gains in the strikeout department so far. We'll see if that holds. A lot of swing and miss in his game last year. Jordan Beck strikes out a lot, but has been very high quality, 8 home runs, 6 steals, and some things to like about the extended numbers. Cubs bats against German Marquez. So again, Marquez has made 10 starts. He's gone 47 innings. He's not striking anybody out at 11.9%. He's walking too many at 8.2, especially against that strikeout rate. And where is he? There he is. But 2 of his recent starts, if we're just looking for something to hang our hat on from a guy who used to be really good at this, last time out, faced the Phillies, 7 innings, faced 26 Phillies, gave up 4 hits, 2 runs, only 1 of them earned, struck out 5 and walked 2. We get no quality for strikeouts there, but at 5,000, we don't really need it. It would be nice to have. Against the Diamondbacks on the 17th, he was terrible. 5 earned runs, 7 runs total, 1 strikeout, 3 walks. Disaster over 3 innings. But the start before that, he faced the Rockies at Coors Field. 7 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, 2 strikeouts and a walk. It's a great start. Both of those quality starts came at Coors Field. If you do that at Coors Field, you can do that for 7 innings against one of the best lineups in baseball at Wrigley on a day where Wrigley's playing like bad Wrigley. Am I a believer? No. Do I want him at 6,900 on FanDuel? Also, no. Is it extremely likely to completely blow up in your face? Yes. Will I be rostering Cubs on the other side as one of the best stacks of the day? Also, yes. But does 5,000 kind of work as just your bargain bin apple box? Give me 7 innings, even if you give up 3-4 runs, strike out 3 or 4 guys for 5,000 for a mid-board pitcher hitter price. Like you're a good hitter, but not the very best. There's viability there. It's not a good play. You can see where it projects. I'm pointing. You can't see me pointing, but you can see where it projects. I should use the mouse. 7 DraftKings points. I think makes the point the most firmly. But that gets extended if he works 7 innings. What you're not likely to get is a win bonus. This is a terrible baseball team that he's on. But this is a functional price. No Cattell for the Diamondbacks. That sucks. Honestly, though, that helps the placeholder lineup that I put in because I'll take Cattell's price out of there. And this is a FanDuel thing. And I'll take him out and I'll put like a cheaper Pavin Smith in the util spot. And then I'll put somebody at a higher quality at like second base. Or you could also go the Perdomo route if that's the case. On FanDuel, unfortunately, he's still ludicrously high price. I think he's still 39. We'll get to that game. Still love the Diamondbacks even with that. Love the upside there. David Soto's brother's name is Carlos Soto. The price is functional, but again, you're probably going to lose if you play that. Just know that. Cubbies bats. Let's see if we got the lineup in. We do not. Ian Happ, tremendous leadoff hitter. Getting on at a 347 clip. Has more upside than we've seen individually. Slashing 253, 347, 349. Just a .097 ISO is uncharacteristic for him. Typically, we see more barrels, more hard hits down this year in both departments. Missed a little bit of time. Still looking for the power upside to return, but he's drawing a ton of walks. He's a great table setter ahead of Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki, Pete Crow Armstrong, who must watch this show and said, oh, damn, he's right. I do need to improve my offense on opening day this year and has never looked back. Over 225 plate appearances. PCA now, or 229 rather. PCA now has 14 home runs, 14 steals, a 280, 310, 565 slash line, a 285 ISO. Look at the ISOs on this team. Look at this absurd stretch of power bats that this team has. That's a 6-man average 260 ISO. over Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki, Pete Crow Armstrong, Carson Kelly, Michael Busch, Dansby Swanson. That's ridiculous power. It's also giving you results. It's resulted in a average of 11 home runs across that stretch, a total of 67 home runs in 1,200 plate appearances. It's phenomenal output. Everybody has a double-digit barrel rate, and we're not talking about guys who are scraping by with 10.1. Everybody is 11.3 is the low point with Dansby. Everybody else 12 plus. Mid 40s hard hit rates and up from there. There's a couple guys with aggressive strikeout rates in there, but everybody gets on base as well. A lot of double-digit walk rates through that group. Tremendous premium contact out of a guy like Seiya Suzuki, who could walk more, did walk more the last 2 years. Strikeouts are up a little bit, walks are down a little bit. But Suzuki, over 225 plate appearances, has 14 home runs. 274, 333, 577. Who's been better? Kyle Tucker has 12 homers, 15 steals, 251 ISO. Monster team going up against the corpse of German Marquez. Carson Kelly's expensive at 52.35. In and out of the lineup, but 127 phenomenal plate appearances. If you get him, great. If it's Miguel Amaya, it's a little bit lower end. Any of the other catcher options, a little bit lower end. But Kelly's hit 9 home runs. He's got a 311 ISO, 12.6% barrel rate. Michael Busch at 13.6% barrels has been tremendous. Dansby, 11.3. He's hit 11 home runs. Told you not to worry about Dansby Swanson. 251, 311, 454, a 203 ISO, a 355 xWOBA. Looking every bit the part of a return to form for Dansby Swanson. 113 WRC+. Matt Shaw in the bottom spot is interesting. He's interesting in any spot in this lineup. 3,500, 2,500. He's got a home run, 2 steals, slashing just 226, 333, 33, but he's getting on base like crazy, drawing a lot of walks. Better hitter than this overall. Super interesting bat down lineup. Nico's in the mix. He's a correlated scoring option, few steals, tons and tons of on base. He's a BABIP and on base focused hitter, but he doesn't strike out, puts the ball in play like crazy. And by the way, again, Ian Happ should be one of these guys with a better than 200 ISO. He's actually shortchanging that lineup a little bit by being where he is. Typically a better power bat. Cubs bats, and I didn't really talk about Horton, but we'll get there. It's Cubs bats, Cade Horton, and then maybe a couple bargain bin German Marquez darts. In his 2 starts, Horton went 5 1/3 against the Marlins in a full start. Faced 24 hitters, gave up 1 earned run, struck out 3, walked 3. Faced 21 White Sox over 5 innings, gave up 3 earned on 7 hits, 2 strikeouts, no walk, 2 home runs allowed there. That's the blip for the earned runs. And then faced the Mets in a bulk relief appearance in his debut. 4 innings, 3 earned runs on 4 hits to a very high-quality Mets team. He gave up a homer, but struck out 5 against a pretty low strikeout Mets team, which is an accomplishment. Kid's one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. So a lot of upside against one of the worst lineups. 8,000, like it a lot on DraftKings. 7,600, one of the top priority pitchers of the day on FanDuel. In the minors, Horton in 29 innings, 6 starts this year at AAA had a 30.6% strikeout, a 12% walk, but this team not exactly the most patient bunch. Last season, short outage, just 34 1/3 over 9 starts last year in AAA. Mostly at AAA, 27.2% strikeouts, 13.6% walks. So again, a lot of walks. 88 1/3 in 21 starts back in 2023. Mostly at AA. 29, lost it. 33.5% strikeouts against just 7.7% walks. Dominated at the lower levels. He's still only 23, kind of aggressively bounced up several levels, and has shown not downside, not warts or anything like that, but just like levels catch up with you as you go up like that, and then you got to find it against that level. Against this team, which is essentially a AA team, love the upside for Horton. So again, Cubs bats, Horton. Only a few very, very cheap darts of Marquez if you're feeling frisky on DraftKings for the extreme cheap price. He honestly should be 4,000 though. And really no Rockies bats. Maybe a few of the guys I highlighted. Cubs are Carlos Soto's squad. There you go. It's a phenomenal team, dude. Needs some help on the mound still, but love that Cubs lineup. Greg switched to Perdomo. Yeah, that works. Dude's been great this year and always has been a good option for on-base correlated scoring in that lineup. Blue Jays and the Rangers. We got the Rangers. We don't have the Blue Jays. No Corey Seager. Going back to the question that was asked hours ago at this point. We have a ways to go. I really need to pick up the pace. Target of a pitcher. 57.75 for Bowden Francis. I don't want him at either price. If you do feel compelled to play Bowden Francis, do it at 57 on DraftKings, not at 75 on FanDuel. I get that the Rangers have underperformed basically this entire season, but there are still too many good bats in this lineup. There are still too many guys with 14, 15% barrel rates, upper 40s into the 50s hard hit rates, low strikeout option. Well, I didn't click on any of the right guys, but there's a couple low strikeout guys in there. There is power here. There is quality here. They're just waiting for Corey Seager to get back to help them kind of boost their overall quality. They've definitely been in like a year plus championship hangover, but a lot of these guys are still those same guys. So there's upside. There's definitely upside against a Bowden Francis that's giving up a 6.88% home run rate over 10 starts. It's one of the highest numbers over 10 starts that you're going to see, period. 49.1 miles an hour, or 49.1% hard hits. Our threshold for problematic, I'll remind you, is 40%. 90.9 miles an hour of exit velo over the line, 11.9% barrels over the line, 20.5 degree average launch over, well, that's an aggressively high fly ball trajectory. Last year, similar premium contact numbers, but way fewer hard hits. Exit velo was manageable, but too many barrels still on an extreme fly ball trajectory, which again is baked into barrel rate. Was it a 4.17? That's over our line for concerning even in a good year. And this was a mediocre year that was bolstered by like 10 strong starts down the stretch that he has not lived up to in any way. He's been a target for at least half his starts this year. We got onto that one fairly early. Look what he's doing in the home run model for the Rangers. That's why I like the Rangers quite a bit today as a cheap stack. Mentioned it at the beginning of the show, talked about it in the middle of the show. We're coming back to it now. Josh Smith, top of the lineup at 43.27. Plays every position available on FanDuel. Not ideal as a shortstop on DraftKings, but at least there's no positional conflict. If you just want to fill shortstop, you're getting him in the leadoff spot. You're getting a quality impact lefty with some obvious flaws, but the ability to hit home runs. More importantly, the ability to get to first base and set the table for the rest of this lineup. But Josh Smith is very playable. I talk about him a lot as a guy who flashes and then comes back down, and he's already doing that. You can see it right here. We're at 263, 333, 385. 334 XWOB is kind of in line with that. A 105 WRC plus. This is just very much who he is. But 4 home runs that he hit in a hurry, 5 stolen bases. He can give you things around the edges to keep him interesting. He doesn't strike out a lot. He doesn't give you a ton of days of zeros. And he is capable of spiking the big day. And he's in a great spot in the lineup. Priority bat if you're going to this team. This is the better spot to have him, though. 4,800 for Wyatt Langford, 35 on the FanDuel slate, 10 plus in the home run model today, 14.5% barrels, 48 and change hard hits. He's hit 10 homers. He's stolen 10 bases, creating runs 23% better than average, carrying a 220 ISO, and this team so far. Tremendous option today against this pitcher. Love him for home run upside. Josh Young at 38-31 is just cheap. He's hit 7 home runs and 179 chances. A 349 xWOBA kind of stands out. He gets on base. He creates runs. Doesn't really strike out that much. Doesn't walk a ton, so you get a decent amount of balls in play. High quality opportunities for a very cheap price from a guy who was very good 2 years ago and then just missed most of last season. FanDuel is closer to the market, 31, but that's still cheap for his quality. This is definitely cheap. Jake Berger at 36.28. I know he's been bad, but he's at least hit 7 home runs. He does have a 197 ISO, which is not nothing. 14 in the home run model today. 15.2% barrels and 50% hard hits. If he hadn't lost 40 plate appearances in that blip when they sent him down, I think we would have seen more normalization and we'd have a better home run total. He's been destroying balls that he makes contact with. Strikeouts are an exact match for where they were last year when people loved him. Walks are down, but it's negligible. It's part of the WRC plus in the on base being down. But what we're looking for with Jake Bauer is that tremendous power upside, and that is very much intact. 2,800 is cheap. 3,600 is cheap against literally the biggest home run target among regular starters that we have this year. Love the upside for this stretch of power hitters. You get another very cheap option, especially on FanDuel at 2,100 in Alejandro Osuna, 2,500 on DraftKings. He's made 7 plate appearances. He's been effective in that tiny, tiny sample. In 184 plate appearances in mostly AA, 146 of them at AA. 2 home runs, 9 steals, 279, 386, 416 hitter with a 124 WRC plus, 15.8% strikeouts and 11.4% walks. That did spike a little bit in just 38 plate appearances when he got called up from AA to AAA, but we're kind of ignoring that. He's only 22, so I mean, there are going to be some growing pains here, but the kid does have some talent. In 2024, over 461 plate appearances, about half of which came at AA, the others at high A. 18 home runs, 17 steals, 292, 362, 507. Kind of aggressively promoted and still young to be getting here, but hitting in the heart of the lineup for just 2,500. That is someone to keep in mind for what that skill set is. Maybe we're not home run hunting with him. He's got an okay enough home run mark. But as a correlated scoring, individual counting stat creator for a very cheap price to help round out a lineup, tremendous option. And then we get to Adolis Garcia for just 4,000. 14.9% barrels, 47.5% hard hits. Those numbers look a lot like these numbers, guys. Down a little bit from those, but not by much. 25.8% strikeouts is technically improved from 27.8, 27.7 the last 2 years. The walks are also unfortunately down. He's hit 7 home runs. He's slashing just 215, 263, 382, and continuing his struggles from last year that were just frustrating all season long. But it's another guy, when he makes contact, it's been of a tremendous and on par for him nature. 11.79 in the home run model is not incorrect. His pricing is probably incorrect. He's hit 7 homers, 5 steals, just a 168 ISO. Again, I am fully aware of the struggles. That's why you're getting him so cheap against the best home run target this year. Jonah Heim, at worst, a mix and match option with a little bit of power for cheap, 3,500 from the catcher spot where you got to play him. 6 home runs, a 148 ISO, just a 297 xWOBA, not overly appealing. But again, you're just looking at him as a cheap shot at a little bit of power, 6.92 in the home run model. Marcus Semion's been mostly dead, but 8.12 in the homer model. He's hit 3, stolen 3 bases. A lot of history there supporting Semion so far. Less appealing than he's been over recent years. And then Higgy. Higgy just kind of quietly doing his thing down here, over 83 plate appearances. It's only resulted in 1 home run so far this year. We saw the big spike in home run output last year, but that came on barrels and hard hits that were like in line with his previous season's production. And he just saw the spike in the results. What that becomes this year, we don't know, but we'll take the fact that the hard hits and barrels are essentially where they were last year when he hit 17 homers. And again, if we're just home run hunting here, 9.15 to round things out with a $2,600 catcher where you have to play the position. Higgy is probably more appealing than Jonah Heim, despite hitting 2 spots further down the lineup. Because honestly, nobody will be playing him. The Blue Jays, they're facing Nathan Eovaldi. There's nothing appealing about facing Nathan Eovaldi. He's pitching to a 1.60 ERA with a 2.60 xFIP. He's been phenomenal this year. 0.79 whip. Again, when you're under when you're under 1, that's an accomplishment. When you're under 0.9, that's another accomplishment. He's under 0.8. He's been absurd. 13.1% swinging, a 30% CSW. Not allowing any power. Good ground ball option, 6.8 degree average launch angle. It is difficult to hit home runs. He doesn't walk anybody, just 3.5% walks. This team will have an impact on his strikeout ceiling, but he's good enough, again, with this, with these kind of results and with his stuff. It's good enough to get through. Find a few additional Ks. It's a non-threatening Blue Jays lineup that's pretty top-heavy. Not non-threatening because they do have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but it's not a deep Blue Jays lineup. Should be a good day to be Nathan Eovaldi. Should be a good day to be a Rangers fan. 351 implied total for the Blue Jays. If you're going to Blue Jays bats, again, you're doing it with low probability. If they break Eovaldi today, it's for 4 or 5 runs. It's not for 12. It's a low-end spot, but you do get an extreme discount on Bo Bichette, 41.29. He's slashing 270, 317, 389. He's hit 4 homers, 4 steals. The results been a little bit up and down, but 8.6% barrels, nearly 50% hard hits, a 362 xWOBA. These numbers are going to come up. He's just cheap now. 47.33 for Vladdy. Vladdy's getting stupid cheap on DraftKings. 13.6% barrels, 50.6% hard hits, 7 home runs, just a 147 ISO, but a 394 xWOBA. Vladdy, he's just cheap. It's just a terrible spot. Dalton Varsho at 44.34 is overpriced on FanDuel, probably also overpriced on DraftKings. He's hit 8 home runs, but is otherwise pretty empty. You can chase for power there, but he's not really the home run hitter that he's been so far this year either. 6.46 in the home run model is more reflective of reality. It's effectively in the middle of the board. Springer at 42.29 is the better of those two outfielders. 247, 361, 429. He has 5 home runs. He stole 7 bases, 377 xWOBA, created runs 28% better than average, and you get him a little bit cheaper than his counterpart, Dalton Varsho. You can take both those guys as well. Anthony Santander is also better than Dalton Varsho. He hasn't really shown it much this season, 189, 274, 320. It's difficult to defend, but he's been one of the better home run hitters in the American League over the last few seasons. I continue to believe that we return to form here eventually. Alejandro Kirk at 31.25, mix and match quality. He's had a good 163 plate appearances. He'll hit you the occasional home run. He's getting on at a very good clip. It's just resulting in a 101 WRC+. There's not a ton of upside, but he puts okay bat on ball. He doesn't really strike out over time. He draws a fair amount of walks, so he's always in play for some correlated scoring with a little individual upside. Addison Barger's making tremendous contact, over 109 plate appearances, 12% barrels, 58.7% hard hits. It's resulted in just 2 home runs, just a 160 ISO, but a 358 xWOBA tells us that these numbers should come up. 104 WRC plus should be around there or continue to climb. It's a good enough option for me at 31 if we're just going down lineup for a cheap bat. I'd probably plunk him in the outfield on FanDuel at the 26 rather than third base overall. But if you have to put him at third, it's not like there's a ton of downside given the quality of contact he's made. Ernie Clement, Nathan Lukes, mix and match guys. Neither guy is overly appealing, but between the two, Lukes has been better. He's got a little bit more realistic power upside. He's hit 4 homers. Otherwise, mediocre outside of some on-base skills. I'll put Nathan Eovaldi on top, but I really want to put the Rangers bats on top in my heart of hearts. It's just Eovaldi, especially on this slate, that kind of has that high peak. We just have to be kind to those pitchers. So we'll go Eovaldi on top, also to respect the 4.08 implied total for the Rangers and all their underperformance, but know that I like this team better than they look. Love the home run upside for the Rangers. I like the ability for them to put a few runs on Bowden Francis, exploit the upside, the downside, and then get to a Blue Jays pen that I almost said is pretty mediocre. That's just apocryphal, though. Let's see. I would have to find it. Never mind. I was going to look it up, but I would have to find it on the graph site. I forget where it is. Haven't looked up bullpens, really. Nobody leaps to mind as being particularly dominant right now out of the Blue Jays bullpen. Got a couple of interesting pitching prospects, but they're not here right now. So, long story short, I like the Rangers as a potentially cheap and under-owned stack today. And then Blue Jays bats loosely playable if you want them. I don't like Bowden Francis at all. If you do it, though, do it on DraftKings for just 57. The Athletics at a very low total, 3.25 implied. We have the confirmed lineup now. Again, if you weren't here at the beginning of the show, their rookie, just as he was heating up, unfortunately, Nick Kurtz got placed on the injured list. So we have a slightly different than recent days version of the A's lineup. I have the Astros in here. Astros looking like their pretty typical configuration here. So I definitely, especially on a day where we're, again, going to just kind of need some of those top-end pitchers, I don't love the idea of targeting Hunter Brown. He's been okay with launch this year, 13.2 degrees. Last year, that was 9.6. The year before, 6.9. He gave up some home runs in here, but didn't really allow many hard hits. No exit velo, really, last season, and that is actually even improved. So while he's given up a few additional barrels and a little bit more launch, he's actually missed hard hits and limited the actual velocity of those hits. But he was already tremendous in those departments last year. The year before, as he was developing up, 29 starts, 155 and 2/3, had a little downside for power. So that's where maybe a little bit, in addition to just his talent of the 10.15 for Brent Rooker comes from. 8.66 for Tyler Soderstrom, kind of the same thing. 7.98 for Lawrence Butler. Even the Shea Langoliers number at 7.78. Those are all tremendous home run hitters, though. So I would believe a 2-run shot at any one of those guys to kind of bend the scoring at a very high price for Hunter Brown. But that is the extent of the visible downside for Hunter Brown in this spot. 3 runs is about right. So love the upside. He's a killer strikeout pitcher, 30.6% against a lineup that is certainly vulnerable to strikeouts. 11.2% swinging strikes. Another guy with a sub-1 whip. 2.04 ERA against a 2.80 xFIP. What's not to like about Hunter Brown? JP Sears is a lot more to dislike. 4.0 ERA is all right on the surface, but a 4.42 xFIP is kind of exposing his downside. 18.7% strikeouts against just 4.4% walks, though, is actually kind of standout for the strikeout to walk ratio. It's not a great strikeout rate on its own, but against just those walks, that's not terrible. 1.15 whip is, honestly a little high for that walk rate, but manageable for a pitcher of this price, of this quality. Last year, 18.1 against 6.5, so similar. The year before, 21.9, had a little bit more strikeout stuff and can occasionally spike a better strikeout game, but not a big-time strike thrower, not a big-time strikeout option. He also gives up a fair amount of power, 3.69% home runs last year in 32 starts, year before in 32 starts, 4.63% home runs, a lot of barrels and hard hits each of those years. Barrels slightly down in the small sample so far this year, but home runs up, given the wonky nature of home runs. When you're just a fly ball pitcher, the home run can get out. This ballpark plays up a little bit of power for this version of the Astros lineup, so I think we like the Astros at a 4.85 implied total and don't love JP Sears at 79. What he is on a day with a funky midboard, he's at least in the conversation. If you're going to say, all right, I'll give 5% across 150 lineups to each of those guys in the middle, or 10% of my exposure across a big sortable pool of lineups, I think that's fine. I think he's usable to that degree, but then I don't think you want him in 15 of your actual 150 entries, or in 5 of your 25 or something like that. Like, that would be crazy. But you want him in the mix of lineup creation. A's bats that are in play. Lawrence Butler for 4 and 3,000 on FanDuel. He's been down this season. 7 home runs, 8 steals. At least the counting stats are somewhat intact. He's been creating runs in a positive sense, but the overall individual quality has been down. Barrels are down, but they're still good on an individual sense. 9.4%, 45.6% hard hits. Again, down, but still good on their own if you just took expectation out of the equation. Strikeouts are up, but only slightly. Walks are right around where they were. So there's a lot to like with Lawrence Butler still, and his price has come down, 4,000, 3,000. It's just a terrible spot attacking Hunter Brown. If you do it, you're doing it at low ownership, and you can get their best quality bats to do it with. So there's obviously appeal in doing that. But again, it's one of the lower end pitchers to target for that sort of thing. 4,200, 3,000 for Jacob Wilson is a cheap price for a guy slashing 350, 393, 495, a 155 WRC plus. He's been fantastic. 5% strikeouts, 5.5% walks, just absurd numbers out of the kid. Really, really good. High contact hitter. Could bend the day with a few base hits for Hunter Brown, but then needs help from his friends like Brent Rooker, who is striking out at a 23.9% clip, which on its own is, a glaring strikeout rate. Not great, but it's markedly improved from 28.8 last year, 32.7. He continues to make strides in a lot of departments. 12 home runs on the board, a 213 ISO, 384 xWOBA, 13.2% barrels, 44% hard hits. Both of those numbers are down over each of the last 2 years, but there's some happenstance in that mix. As the summer heats up, his home runs are going to start flying again. 3,000 for Tyler Soderstrom reflects a little bit of the downturn overall. 269, 338, 462 after the monster start. 10 home runs, just 1 in the last 6 weeks now. but still tremendous overall results. 15.7% barrels, 52.3% hard hits. A lot of the ongoing stuff has been ongoing and has maintained a lot of his quality. Getting on at a 338 clip, creating runs 27% better than average, an entirely justifiable 377 xWOBA, supporting all the upside we've seen. Just a really good lefty bat, but again, terrible spot. Miguel Andujar, great hit tool, 318, 348, 430. Not a lot around the edges. 17 runs, 20 ribbies if we're hunting for those kind of counting stats, just a stolen base, just 3 home runs. 295 xWOBA is the thing that stands out the most to me. Given the lack of quality contact, he's just a guy who puts frequent bat on ball. You can get out to these kind of barrel rates and hard hits in small stretches. It just depends on what is he over time. And it looks like he's more this guy, at least this version of him. Langoliers, tons of barrels, tons of hard hits from the cheap catcher. 4,000 for Shea Langoliers on its own is appealing. 9 home runs on the board. He's even stolen 4 bases at 346 xWOBA. You just don't want to throw him against Hunter Brown. CJ Alexander, Luis Urias, Denzel Clark, all of those guys you don't want to throw against Hunter Brown. Alexander is the dead min at third base on both sides. "28 years old now, almost 29. 10 home runs in 184 AAA plate appearances in the PCL this year. 13% walks against 25.5% strikeouts. Very much been a 3 true outcomes hitter. Last year in Kansas City's AAA team, over 350 plate appearances, hit 16 home runs, totaled it out to 19 with another 3 in Oakland. AAA Kansas City as a 26-year-old back in 2023, 13 home runs in 314 plate appearances, a 200 plus ISO, mediocre slash line, a lot of strikeouts, not that many walks. At the major league level, probably just overmatched as a 3 true outcomes hitter. Very cheap if you're going to the A's already. And then Urias can drive the ball. 6 home runs over 145 plate appearances. There is a little bit of cheap power there. Michael Knack, sorry to hear that, buddy. If you're still there, that was a message from a few minutes ago. As Carlos says, keep your head up, bud. If there's anything we can do, let us know. Sorry to hear that things have been a little bit rough over the last few days. Love you too, pal. Appreciate you. Astros bats in what is suddenly an awkward transition. 485 implied total. We get Jeremy Pena at 4,000, 3,100 from the top spot at shortstop. Never my favorite way to fill short. 6.5% barrels, 40.2% hard hits. We're already normalizing toward where I told you Jeremy Pena was headed. We see this a lot from him. 295, 362, 435. Still some good in there. 6 homers, 6 steals. Just a 140 ISO, 130 WRC plus. A supportive 346 xWOBA though. There's some good, there's some bad. He's not uppriced, so you're fine at those prices on a very appealing team to stack against a very gettable pitcher. So he's in the mix at worst. 4,300, 3,400 for Isaac Paredes, who now has 11 home runs and continues to be ideal for home run hitting in this ballpark, while also being low strikeout, high walk, high on base, good correlated scoring option with a 151 WRC plus. This Astros team is going to surge when Jordan Alvarez gets back in the lineup. Jose Altuve, speaking of surging, 257, 309, 376, improving around the edges, 6 home runs, 4 steals, just a 4.8% barrel, 29.9% hard hits, just a 279 xWOBA with a 119 ISO. A lot of work to do, but has shown some signs of life lately. Not completely dead, back up to the 3 spot in the lineup. There's some ability there. At second base for 39 for 29, given who we know this guy is, just given the frequency of contact from the right side that he provides with his very low strikeout, medium walk rate approach, there's a lot to like about throwing some Jose Altuve for cheap against JP Sears, a pitcher he's seen a number of times. Christian Walker at 38, 28 across sites is just downright cheap for who he's been over the last few seasons. That is a objectionably cheap price. 11 in your home run model for the people who like that sort of thing. 6 homers on the season is the lone bright spot, but even that is a low total, over 218 plate appearances for him. Comes on 12% barrels, 45.8% hard hits. Both numbers extremely appealing and in line with expectations. Neither of those numbers is far off the StatCast numbers from the last 2 seasons. It's just the strikeouts have gone up year over year in the last 2 seasons. The walks have come down from where he's been the last few seasons. So a lot to dislike about what Walker's done so far, but I'm not willing to write him off yet, and neither are they. He's hitting cleanup today. He's at a cheap price against a very gettable lefty. I like the upside. I really do. Jake Myers at 35-28. Mix and match quality player over time. You're not really paying a tax. 35 is like the upper limits of where he ought to be, though. 28 on FanDuel, still in that same territory. Slashing 300, 358, 413, 3 homers, 8 steals. But as we've highlighted a couple times, you're paying a little bit for performance that has happened already. And then there's a lot of downside from years past. He does have the ability to put okay bat on ball, 6.8% barrel, 6.3 the last 2 years, but like mediocre hard hit rates, mediocre for strikeouts, medium walk rates, low end slash lines when you give him more plate appearances over time. Does have a 338 xWOBA supporting the reality of what we've seen so far this year. It'll be interesting to revisit him another 250 plate appearances down the line. He's very playable in the heart of the lineup against a gettable lefty. This is an entirely right-handed lineup today. This is a mix and match quality. Jainer Diaz is better than that. 9.4% barrels, 40.3% hard hits. He's also better than his results so far this year. 229, 266, 360. You guys have heard me talk about this hitter quite a bit this season. He's way better than those numbers. 5 homers. We've seen some normalization lately. The barrels and the hard hits are appealing. The low strikeout, low walk, a lot of balls in play. For 34, that's an ideal catcher to put in your lineups. You don't have Victor Caratini today, so you're just going to Jainer every single time you go to the Astros for a catcher. And as a one-off on DK, that is a very appealing catcher option against this pitcher. Cam Smith, Chas McCormick, Mauricio Dubon down lineup. Between those guys, I'd be very tempted to go to Chas McCormick, but the numbers have come up a little bit for Cam Smith. He's up to 261, 344, 388. Not unappealing, a 114 WRC plus, 3 home runs, a stolen base. The power of the steals aren't exactly appealing, but he's gotten on base at a pretty good clip now. He's creating runs. There's a little bit of there now. Very cheap pricing in the outfield. Ultimately, probably just another outfielder. But between him and McCormick, as much as I like McCormick over time, and I like the 341 on base, let's say, I was looking for something to cling to after I said I like and then looked at his current year stats. Just 48 plate appearances. We know that there's pop in that bat from years past. We always liked him as a bottom of this lineup when you had Kyle Tucker and Jordan and Bregman and Altuve up at the top. He was a nice relief valve for salary and ownership down there who could give you good upside days. We haven't seen that yet this year. We lost that completely in an injury-marred year last year. But I'm not willing to say it's completely gone, and he's very, very cheap. So that's why I'd be interested down there. But I think between the two, I probably would go to Cam Smith if I had the 600 and the 400 to spend across sites, just given the quality that Smith has shown. Mauricio Dubon's just a mix and match guy with second base eligibility, 272, 306, 370. That's basically exactly who he is. Hunter Brown, Astros bats, basically tied with one another. Maybe a few darts of A's bats if you wanted to, but it's one of the worst targets for that and probably the worst target for that among the good teams facing a good pitcher that we have available today. So I really wouldn't. And then JP Sears is nothing more than a too expensive dart, but he should be in the mix for your lineup construction, like I said. Yanks and the Angels. A lot of strikeouts on deck for Carlos Rodon, but also, again, a lot of righty power. It's not a safe spot. Rodon's been tremendous this year, though. 2.88 ERA with a 3.26 xFIP that doesn't really betray it. Another guy with a sub-1 whip for him, especially against a 10.1% walk rate. That's a really, really good whip. Some of that is luck. Good fortune, let's say. Good results. Not all luck. Luck is the wrong way to phrase that. Right? Like if Carlos Rodon induces a ground ball on a batted, that's a batted ball in play and they get an out, like that's not lucky necessarily. It's just a good result, good outcome. BABIP against this year, 201. That's what I'm talking about. So not entirely lucky, just him pitching at like the peak of his powers. 31% strikeouts against a too high walk rate, but one that is established that that's who he is. 12.6% swinging strikes, 31.5% CSW, and aggressively good stuff. Plus mark, not too bad for power, but there is some premium contact in here to at least keep an eye on for a guy who is a fly ball trajectory pitcher. 3.1% home run rate, not nothing, but not as bad as the 4.21 that he pitched to last year. Not as bad as the 5.24 that he pitched to in 14 starts the year before. But again, something to watch as far as that power goes. That's why I don't fully trust the spot against the team that does have some hard-hitting righties. But I also really like the option. 10-5, 10-1 against the team with a glaring 27.3% strikeout rate for this version of the lineup. What do they do against lefties? One of these days I'll figure out a good way to get these splits into the board. All right, active roster versus lefties. Los Angeles. What is this sorted by? They're at the top of the board for something. I don't know what it's sorted by. It's not strikeouts, but that's a really high strikeout rate. Yeah, anyway. They rank middle of the league, 11th over just 284 plate appearances against lefties for the active roster this year with 11 home runs. They're striking out at a 25.4% clip with just a 3.9% walk. That should play pretty well for Carlos Rodon. 211, 246, 392 against lefties this year with just a 73 WRC plus that ranks 5th from the bottom. 6th, technically. Tied with the Rangers. Angels, Rangers, Pirates, Royals, standout. Twins, also kind of glaring. And Rockies are your bottom 6 teams against left-handed pitching via WRC plus this year. The Chicago White Sox, 18th, still substandard, and 84 WRC plus is not good, but it ranks in the middle of the league. League collectively, only 12 teams with a collective active roster positive WRC plus against lefties this year. And there's a big dip too. Wow. The 12th ranked team is the Padres at 102. The 13th ranked team is the Cards at 91. That's more than a 10-point gap. Yankees top of the board, 156 WRC plus against lefties this year. Not to spoil things, but the Yankees are also facing a lefty. That's why I left the board open and talked about the whole thing. Yanks have hit 24 homers, stolen 14 bags. They're drawing on an 11.6% walk rate, 21.8% strikeouts. A collective for the entire active roster, 252 ISO over 490 plate appearances against lefties this year. Mashing, creating runs at a 156 clip that exceeds the Cubs' second place 137. This is dramatic. Yankees destroy lefties. 5.35 implied total, one of the highest of the day for the Yanks. Monster options. But again, Rodon, to round out the point, maybe not completely entirely 100% lock it away. It's safe, given the power upside. We'll do the Angels first. Home team first in this one. Zach Neto at 5,000, 3,800, 283, 324, 551, 9 home runs. It's been absolutely tremendous, or whatever. I almost came out of my mouth. Over 148 plate appearances. It's coming back to the lineup. 268 ISO, 50.5% hard hits, 17.5% barrels. Tremendous shortstop on really any slate against anybody from the top of the lineup. He's just gotten expensive, 5,000, 3,800. Those aren't incorrect prices. They're just not entirely familiar with Zach Neto prices. 3,500, 2,800 for Nolan Shanuel, the one of the lone lefties in this lineup, the only guy who will start the game hitting from the left side. 274, 373, 389. Great correlated scoring and on-base option. You can absolutely play him here. His low strikeout, high walk, so could be one of the guys that exploits the downside for Carlos Rodon and part of his downfall today. If you're chasing that, I would definitely include Neto. And then Joan Moncada, take or leave. He's barreled a lot of balls at 15% of his batted ball events. 221, 333, 442. There's some good, there's some bad in there. 4 home runs, 221 ISO is quite good. 341 xWOB. His creator runs 19% better than average. It's one of the more extended stretches recently of him looking like the hitter he was once supposed to be, but it's only 102 plate appearances. Decidedly mediocre. 5.55 in the home run model. Taylor Ward, one of the hitters I'm more here for. 15 home runs from the right side, a 7.24 in today's home run model on 17.1% barrels, 48.6% hard hits. Definitely sign up for some Taylor Ward shares if you're going to the Angels. Travis d'Arnaud, one of our favorite backup catchers in baseball. Just a pretty bad season so far, over 77 plate appearances, just 1 home run on the board. Pretty bad in terms of the ISO. The xWOBA, 10.6% barrels, 40.4% hard hits, not off the mark from where he's been when he's been a good home run hitter in a temporary role the last couple of years. 2,600 at catcher is very, very cheap on DraftKings. Luis Rengifo, Really disappointing 175 plate appearances. Was a good on base and correlated scoring guy with some stolen base upside last year. Has lost all of that. Mix and match at best at second base. Joe Adell's appealing in the outfield. 11.9% barrels, 45.5% hard hits. What he's not is patient. What he is high strikeout. He's much more likely to strike out 3 times against Carlos Rodon than he is to do anything else or anything positive. But there is power there. From the bottom part of the lineup, he is the most likely guy to hit you a home run from the right side. He's got 6 of them this year. He had a very good year sneakily last year, as we've highlighted a bunch of times, and won't do again, or at least not today. Chris Taylor's on this team now. The other Los Angeles team, I didn't want him anymore because he's been terrible the last 2 seasons. So far this year in 38 plate appearances, completely dead. 2,400, you put him at second base. If you take him between the two, him or Renifo, it's honestly a tie. They've both been pretty bad. You could probably do better. Matthew Lugo, at best, a mix and match guy, 250, 270, 611. Not unappealing in terms of the slug. The premium contact in a very small sample of batted ball events has been tremendous with 22.7% barrels, 59.1% hard hits, and 3 home runs. But pretty extreme downside from the bottom of the lineup against the talented pitcher. And now to the Yankees, who, again, one of the best lineups in baseball, or the best lineup in baseball against lefties. I do not expect much from Tyler Anderson here, but as I said, he's been here for a while. Last year, a 3.81 ERA, but a 4.85 xFIP, 18.6% strikeouts, 9.5% walks. This year, a 3.60 ERA, but a 5.20 xFIP, 18.3% strikeouts, 9.8% walks. If that sounds like I was just repeating the numbers with 10 additional starts from last year, it's because essentially it is. That's just who Tyler Anderson is. Year before, 18.9% strikeouts, 10.2% walks. Was less successful in the results that year, came up to a 5.43 ERA and a 5.52 xFIP. The xFIP is not dissimilar from this year, last year, but the ERA, obviously, in that happenstance over those 25 starts, happened to give up a few more runs along the way. Year before, 2.57 ERA, 4.11 xFIP. That was his best year for results because he miraculously had a 4.8% walk rate that's totally uncharacteristic that year. Just 19.5% strikes. What's interesting about him, though, in each of those seasons in which he has not achieved a 20% strikeout rate, what am I going to say? If you've watched this show before, 11.8% swinging strikes, 12.5% swinging strikes, 12.7% swinging strikes. This year, 11.1% swinging strikes. Do they result in strikeouts? No, not very frequently. Do the Yankees occasionally have terrible games where they get up there and they flail even against lefties and swing and miss way too much? They absolutely do. Does facing a lefty from the right side dramatically take a guy like Jason Dominguez down? It does. But it adds upside to Anthony Volpe. So there's a little bit of trade-off there. If you're deciding between these two guys for similar pricing, it's Volpe today. Not that Dominguez is without upside, but he so far struggles as a righty hitting against lefties. Tremendous. All, 3 of the 4 guys, stars, MVP caliber players, either currently or over time. Lot to like about Paul Goldschmidt, Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger against this pitcher. Not all that much to say that isn't glaringly obvious with those guys. They're all fully priced, or honestly, Goldie at 46 is honestly a little bit cheap. 34 on FanDuel is more correct. He's slashing 345, 399, 490. You haven't gotten a ton of power, but you've gotten a ton of run creation. He's been awesome this year. Trent Grisham's the guy I still, again, don't fully believe that any of this is real, but the 400 xWOBA says that it is. The ridiculous contact he's made says that it is. Lefty bat going up against a lefty, not necessarily ideal. We might see him drop in the lineup, but he'll probably be there. He's been too good. Boone can't resist playing him. Bellinger, I don't sweat the lefty at all. 8 home runs, 4 steals, 337 on base, a 207 ISO overall. 5,000, 3,600 honestly could be a little bit more expensive. On FanDuel, he is a little bit more expensive, I think, than that 5. It's close. Again, Volpe, season uptick against lefties. Overall, barreling 10.7 of his batted ball events, 49.3% hard hits, 6 home runs, 7 steals. Not seeing great results, but if you squint, there's a pretty good uptick in the premium contact. The strikeouts are up a little bit, but the walks are up notably. And more importantly, I would say, 323 on base this year. He's only stolen 7 bags. Last year, he had a 293 on base. He stole 28 over 689 plate appearances, 283 with 24 over 601 the year before. So if he's getting on base more in a spot where we like him, he should be running more. we should see there are things to like about Volpe. I think there's demonstrable growth happening kind of under the surface. It's an interesting hitter to keep an eye on over the next couple hundred plate appearances. DJ LeMahieu has always hit the ball very hard. Against the lefty, over his 33 plate appearances so far, just that one home run that he hit in either his first or second game back, but he's carrying a 54.2% hard hit in a small sample, 8.3% barrels, not dissimilar from previous seasons of stretches of results, low strikeout, high walk. DJ LeMahieu is still in there somewhere. Any given slate for a cheap price against the lefty, I'll take some shares. Austin Wells, a lot of barrels and hard hits, 8 home runs on the board. You're just kind of power hunting with him. And then Ozzy Peraza is playing the hell out of third base. Good for him because he's slashing 158, 229, 303. I will again be respectful to the high-end pitchers, and I'll say Carlos Rodon, but it's also Yankees bats, and you could have it either way. Super appealing options both. Angels bats, a few darts around some of the power, and then like the on-base quality of a Nolan Chanuel, I think is kind of interesting. I would mix some in, or I wouldn't go out of my way to avoid them anyway, but they're not a priority at a 3.76 implied total. And Tyler Anderson is a pretty firm no, outside of maybe some shares on DraftKings. I shouldn't have said it that way. Tyler Anderson on DraftKings at 72 does have his lane. He's an SP2 with some value there. But at 83 on FanDuel, I think it's a pretty hard no. If I clicked on the right ones every time, we would save time. Jeez, it's almost 6. I do not do this intentionally. There's just so much to tell you guys. And I enjoy doing this. This is literally like the highlight of my day a lot of days. From here, it's go build lineups based on all these takes and be disappointed. Got a Knicks game to look forward to tonight. Hopefully we even the series back up. Not counting any chickens in that one, but definitely a much better game. Love the idea of getting Karl Anthony Towns, which I think I mentioned on the show. Love the idea of getting him involved in the fourth quarter when they needed him. Big man really came through for the Knicks. Tibbs just has to realize I can put Brunson out there and tell him that I want him to get Cat involved, and it doesn't have to be all about Brunson down the stretch. Mitchell Parker at 63.71. He's striking out 15.1%. He's walking 10.5%. 4.39 ERA against a 5.15 xFIP. Sub 10% swinging. Just a 23% CSW. What he hasn't done is give up barrels or home runs so far in his 10 starts. That's been very beneficial to his numbers overall. Had he given up any home runs in there, this would be just brutal. And this would be, this 5.15 doesn't include home runs. That's who he truly is. There's not a lot here from Mitchell Parker against an upside Seattle lineup that has plenty of power to throw at him and is probably a little undercut by results in some of these numbers. Last year, 2.79% home runs on what was, reasonable contact. There's nothing special about 38.9, 89.6, 8.1 on a 15.3. So a little bit of happenstance on his side there as well. He's gotten lucky to avoid some home runs in the show. So a guy like Cal Raleigh could definitely change that. 7.72 doesn't totally reflect his 17 home runs, his 323 ISO. He's been a monster power bat over time. The model certainly knows who he is, but he's seen a big uptick even this year, and you're throwing him up against a gettable enough pitcher. There's no concerns about facing a lefty there. There's plenty of contact available. Love the upside for Raleigh as the big bat in this lineup. And then you get guys like Julio Rodriguez, who has underperformed his talent again this year in 231 plate appearances. The barrels are down, but the hard hits are still stable at least. These are not terrible numbers on their own. He's striking out just 19% of the time, walking 8.2. If I just showed you this and that, you'd be like, all right, that guy's appealing. 5,000, not a great price. 34, not a great price for this quality. But we know that there's an extensive and high vaulted, gorgeous ceiling made out of reclaimed wood. And it's really nice up there. That's who Julio Rodriguez really is. JP Crawford just 3,300, 2,800, despite continuing to get on base like crazy. 379 on base. That is who he was 2 years ago. When he created runs, 34% better than average. He also hit 19 home runs that year, got on at a 380 clip, was a very good option in the leadoff role. Cratered completely last year, and they're still downgrading him for it. Don't make that mistake. He's just cheap. His creating runs 26% better than average. 341 xWOBA supports the reality of what's going on. 6.8% barrels, 34.8% hard hits. Looks just like the guy, even better than the guy who hit those home runs a couple years ago. He's hit 4 already this season. He's even stolen 2 bases, which he wasn't doing a couple years ago. It's a great table setter for this lineup. He's very, very cheap and not a bad way to fill shortstop, honestly. Against Mitchell Parker, lefty isn't great if I'm remembering for Crawford. But if we're expecting them to chase him, and that Vegas total certainly is, and he's a low strikeout guy, I don't see any real downside. What are we doing against lefties? 235 that I don't really care about. A 381 on base is exactly what I'm talking about. 137 ISO is technically higher than his ISO against righties. Creating runs 31% better than average. I have no concerns. For the career lefty, 238, 330, 342 with a 104 ISO, just a 97 WRC plus. He's definitely been better overall against righties, but that looks like just 250, 346, 380. The on base is very much, again, intact. He's hit for a little bit more power against righties, but it's just a 130 ISO, 110 WRC plus. So if you're just looking at him as a very affordable correlated scoring option with this group, he's tremendous. Fits in perfectly. That 4-man on FanDuel just off the top with Crawford, Rodriguez, Raleigh, and Randy Arozarena. They're 4 hitters that you would want. 33.25 apiece to face Mitchell Parker. I'll take that. On DraftKings, I feel like it's probably more effective. Unfortunately, you can't average in Mitch Garver's price there. You could use an extremely cheap Donovan Solano, though, at the mid price. I like that idea. $4,000 apiece for your 5-man. If you want to use Dylan Moore at 4,500, he's justified that so far this year. 8 home runs, 8 steals. He's been hitting the ball effectively. A 215 ISO, 332 xWOBA, even the underlying is not bad. 11.6% barrels. But you're paying a tax for what's already happened at 4,500. I love putting him at second base, and I think he fits in with this stack, but that takes our average to different places. The power of putting Donovan Solano at first base, he's just a line drive hitter, and he hasn't been good at all over 74 plate appearances. Right now, hopefully, just keeping the spot warm for Tyler Locklear. But Donovan Solano is a better hitter than this. And he's the dead min. And he brings that price down under $4,000 a man, $39.60 each, so $4,000 a piece for the lineup that includes Crawford, Raleigh, Rodriguez, and Arozarena. That's a really good option for the 5-man. Solano is here. And so over 309 plate appearances. When I say that Donovan Solano is a better hitter than he's been this year, this is what I'm talking about. This is a guy with a very good hit tool, 3 years running. This is not a full sample of plate appearances, but it's not an insignificant sample. 286, 343, 417. He doesn't have power, but he's a very good on-base option. Great batting average hitter. He's one of those guys. Bat on ball, BABIP focused. Seen some really bad results this year. That's what's dragged him down over those 70 some odd plate appearances. Last year, he created runs 18% better than average. Year before, in 450 plate appearances, approaching a full sample. 282, 369, 391. Again, just 5 home runs, just a 109 ISO, but a 116 WRC plus. Year before, 304 / 284, 339, 385. So over more than 1,000 plate appearances, right? Or close to 1,063 plate appearances. Dude was a 284, 350 hitter on the front end of his slash line who created runs, even throwing the 98 in there, 11% better than average. And I can get that right-handed bat against a mediocre lefty who does nothing but allow contact for the dead min. I'm not only interested, I'm enthusiastic. It's not the best way in a total vacuum when you're looking for power at first base, et cetera, to play first base. But all of that is thrown out the window by the quality of the hit tool in reality. And the cheap price. Leody Taveras, Ben Williamson, mix and match pieces. Williamson's mostly here for defense. Taveras has given us a little bit of counting stat individual upside, 3 home runs, 8 steals this year, and similar numbers in years past. Always low end for average on base, etc., but can pop for a little bit of low owned, cheap price individual counting stat upside. The Nationals, with just a 384 implied total that way back at the beginning of the show, going on 3 hours ago, I mentioned as being kind of maybe sneaky appealing against Logan Evans, who, pitching to a 17.9% strikeout in 5 starts, a 3.3 ERA, but a 4.19 xFIP, a 1.44 whip. No real premium contact jumping off the page here, but 4.27% home runs in the tiny sample. It's a gettable enough starter. In the minors, 32 AA starts, or 32 AA outings, 22 of them starts, 107 innings as a 23-year-old last year. Had a 21.9% strikeout and a 9.4% walk. Mediocre. 3.20 ERA, but a 4.09 xFIP. Nothing overly special here. Against a effective enough Nationals lineup with a few notably low strikeout bats of general quality, one of which is one of their best players or their best player. CJ Abrams at the top, sub 20% strikeouts this year and 2 years ago, just 21.3 last year. Tremendous premium contact at shortstop, 8 home runs, 9 steals, 238 ISO, 145 WRC plus. James Wood from the left side for 54.39, 13 home runs and 7 stolen bases out of him in a tremendous 233 plate appearances so far. His career runs 55% better than average. He's got a 395 xWOBA, 17% barrels, 58.2% hard hits. This is just James Wood, as I've said a few times already, stepping into his life as a superstar. And he's not going to look back. He's basically fully priced on FanDuel at 39, arguably a couple bucks cheap on DraftKings at 54, but that's obviously a big boy price. Nathaniel Lowe, 3,800, 2,900, 8 home runs on deck, a stolen base, otherwise pretty ugly. He has driven in a lot of runs, but again, that's something that's entirely circumstantial and out of his control. But he is among the league leaders at first base in RBIs. Again, that's just something to hang your hat on. Goes well with a 44.7% hard hit rate, but that's not something we can really count on. He's been better than this over time. I do expect him to be a better on-base option. Hitting for power comes and goes with this bat. It's not a great trade-off. Is he going to be sub 300 on base in exchange for the occasional home run? We need better balance there. Keibert Ruiz, 33.27, high frequency of contact, low quality of contact, 280, 323, 366, a pair of home runs. You're just looking at him to maybe put the ball in play 3 times, maybe clear the bases of a few guys ahead of him, or get on and reset the table for Luis Garcia, Josh Bell, Robert Hassel, all 3 of whom are playable. Hassel was the last piece of a trade, I forget which one, but a reasonably interesting bat for just 25-22. 14 pretty empty plate appearances so far, but high expectations. Bell is a mix and match quality first baseman who struggled this year outside of 6 home runs. Garcia struggling this year outside of 4 homers and 7 steals. Ugly slash line from a hitter who was competent for most of last year and showed a lot of growth last year. Jose Tena and Dalen Lille. Is he French? Don't know anything about Lille. Dalen is 22. 176 plate appearances in the minors this year. Half and half, AA, AAA. 3 homers, 9 steals, was slashing 337, 383, 509. That's impressive. 13.1% Ks, 6.8% walks, 9 steals. Creating runs 50% better than average. It's a big jump over his lower level minor league numbers. It'd be interesting to see how sustainable that is. From the looks of it, mostly like a hit tool on base, speed oriented player without a ton of power. Mixer at the dead min on both sides in the outfield at worst. Mariners bats, Nationals bats. It's really probably neither pitcher. You can maybe get away with a few very cheap darts of either one in the right day. If I'm doing that, I probably lean to Mitch Parker at 63 against what is the better for runs and power, but also higher strikeout of these two lineups, but it's very close and they're both very likely to fail. Somehow there are 2 games to go. Padres lineup is in. Marlins lineup is not. Let's talk about Stephen Kolek. He is pitching to a 20.2% strikeout rate with a 2.84 ERA and a 3.63 xFIP, facing one of the worst lineups in baseball. But among those lineups, I'm talking about the Rockies, the White Sox, etc., they're not completely uninteresting, given the performance of Kyle Stowers so far this year, given the presence of Jesus Sanchez, who has been good in whenever he's been healthy over the last few seasons, given the presence of Agustin Ramirez, who is an interesting enough prospect bat. This is one of the more interesting, appealing, higher-end bad lineups in baseball, if that makes any sense at all. So Stephen Kolek at 84, at 94, projects out just fine. I don't really know what the ceiling looks like given the low-end strikeout rate, and I think given where he's priced, if these Marlins come through with one of their home runs, if they come through with any kind of run creation at all, this goes south in a hurry at these prices. Kolek should succeed here. He should. I'm not taking it off the board. He's one of the better options, given the matchup, but he's only right here. That's very much in the middle and represents the cut point from that projection gap. Do I want to pay 94, 84 for that? We've got all these options up here. Not necessarily. I'd rather target the White Sox, especially with no Luba. I'd rather target the Rockies, as bad as they are in that pitcher-friendly environment. But Kolek should succeed today. Max Meyer at 82-89, pitching to a 26.4% strikeout, 4.15 ERA, but a very nice 3.04 xFIP under the covers, 12.5% swinging, 29.7% CSW, checking in at 8,200, 8,900. Despite the matchup, is honestly the more appealing of these two pitchers. He's cheaper on both sites. He's the better by far of these two guys. Much more talented. But he's facing the Padres. 19.5% strikeouts this year, 17.4 this last year. You can see the downside pretty quickly. You also have 4 of these Padres above the magic number in the home run model because Meyer, that's his one flaw. He gives up a lot of premium contact. 47.1% hard hits, 92.2 miles an hour of exit velo, comes with an 8.9% barrel rate despite just a 7.7 degree average launch. That means those mistakes, when they're made, travel at extreme trajectories into the stands. Same thing last year in a small sample, 57 innings over 11 starts, a 5.65 home run rate. Really ugly for power last year. There is upside in Max Meyer. I just don't think it's necessarily the day to chase it with the Pods looking as good as they do, pulling a mid-4s implied total. Fernando Tatis topping off the home run model at 17.86, or at least one of the top few guys. Dozen homers in his pocket already, 225 ISO at 389 xWOBA. Super, super appealing if you're going there. Luis Ledai is one of the better hit tools in baseball. 281, 315, 405. Underperforming his talent so far. Still carrying a 103 WRC plus. I just hate him at first base. Second base is where I want him. 27 on FanDuel for that works. Manny Machado at 47.34, having a tremendous year at 319, 391, 497, and a 410 xWOBA. More power to come. 6 homers, 12.1% barrel, 53.5% hard hits. Up against anybody. Love him. Up against the pitcher who's given up a ton of premium contact. Love him even more. 55-36 for Jackson Merrill from the left side. Another guy with a 10 plus in the home run model. Over 115 plate appearances, been tremendous. Improved, I would say, from his amazing rookie year last year. Just fantastic option. Gavin Sheets at 39.31 is pretty cheap for a guy with 10 home runs and 176 plate appearances, a 52.5% hard hit rate, double-digit barrels, 226 ISO. Gavin Sheets has been really good for this team. Xander Bogaerts at 37.29. I would play 10 home runs on the board, or 10 stolen bases rather, 320 on base. Reasonable expectations. 319 xWOBA supports a little bit of upside. A 40% hard hit rate is up from last year. 4.3% barrels is down, but he walks a lot, doesn't strike out a ton. 6.86 in the home run model. I like him better at second base. Obviously conflicts with Arise if we're looking to do that, unless you use the Utah spot, which isn't ideal, but he's very playable. What he doesn't have much of anymore is power. Jake Cronenworth, mix and match piece from the left side. Elias Diaz, Tyler Wade, mix and match pieces of diminishing quality as you go down. Really don't like Wade all that much, but he is getting on at a 373 clip. He's created a run 6% better than average in 69 plate appearances, and he's exceedingly cheap at multiple positions, including second base on both sites. If you do take the Marlins against Kolek, I think it's reasonable among all the pitchers on the board. He's not exactly threatening. You'll probably be targeting a fair amount of people who are overpaying for Tyler Kolek today. And again, they haven't been terrible. I legitimately think Jesus Sanchez is a good player. If my outfield wasn't completely full, I'd invite the Yankees to go get him. 9.8% barrels, 41.3% hard hits in his slow start, over 142 this year. 12.2% barrels, 50.9% hard hits last year from the left side. 12.2 and 46.3. Strikeouts are down so far this year. Walks are up so far this year. He's only created runs 5% worse than average, just a 116 ISO, but a tremendous 355 xWOBA that tells us we should see normalization. He's stolen 5 bases. Last year, he had 18 home runs and 537 at a 166 ISO with a 100 WRC plus. Year before, 14 and 402 with a 197 and a 109 WRC plus. It's a good lefty bat. Agustin Ramirez, since getting called up 122 plate appearances ago, barreled 10% of his batted ball events, 48.9% hard hits, 6 homers. The numbers are normalizing around the edges, but you're throwing them up against Stephen Kolek. I'm not that worried about it. I'll take a little bit of upside if I'm going there. Very cheap Marlins bats, again, against a overpriced popular pitcher. There's reason to make the argument. I'm not really making it that firmly. They are bad for a reason. But among the bad teams, Rockies in bad hitting environment. White Sox against a better pitcher. It's probably the best bad team. Kyle Stowers is the most appealing bat, 20.5% barrels, 53.5% hard hits. But Eric Wagman is holding his own, 7.5% barrels, 46.6% hard hits. He's hit 4 home runs, 340 xWOBA tells us we should see some improvement back to those blips of quality that we saw. Still striking out at just a 17.6% clip. He's not unplayable, fills multiple positions on both sides for cheap. It's just not ideal at the corners, kind of more just another outfielder. So on a team where I'm already getting 2 of these outfielders, I don't know that I want a third. And I don't know that I want him at first or third base. Kyle Stowers, absolute priority, though. 10 home runs on that great contact, the 300, 369, 528 slash line, 228 ISO. This is kind of him fulfilling who he's supposed to be. I just don't know that we're expecting the improvement in strikeouts from 35 last year, 36 the year before to 27 so far. Don't know that that holds. If that crumbles, a lot of the numbers around the sides will crumble, but he's got plenty of power, and the power is very real. Otto Lopez, Connor Norby, Victor Mesa, and Javier Sanoa. And yes, I said Victor twice because that's his name. He's not available on either side. Those guys are all mix and matches down the line. Norby's giving you a pretty quality 126 plate appearances, getting on at a 333 clip, creating runs 17% better than average. Probably should hit higher up in the lineup where Otto Lopez is. I would swap those two, but we'll see what happens. Matt Mervis put good bat on ball early in the season, carrying an 8.5% barrel, 2,900 at first base. He's down to 175, 254, 383, and a lot of zeros recently. Does have 7 home runs and a 208 ISO, but that's why you can't fully trust results-based stats. Padres bats, Stephen Kolek, Max Meyer, then Marlins bats, and those are just darts, but I think it's at least doable in a few shares, probably better in 150 lineups, significantly better in 150 than it is in one lineup, in which case I probably wouldn't do it. And now we reach the end. This is the end, my friends. Not to spoil things, Eugenio Suarez for 4,500, 3,200 at a 15.74 that matches Corbin Carroll's number exactly at the top of the lineup. They also both have 15 home runs. Suarez is the finisher. He's the big elbow drop. That is my home run pick of the day. Love the guy. 15 homers on the season. You start with Corbin Carroll. You end with Eugenio Suarez. 5 guys on DraftKings. 4 out of 5 on FanDuel. Love the options that you get here. Araldo Perdomo instead of Ketel Marte is a downgrade, but when you get Perdomo for just 4,400 on DraftKings at shortstop, that erases any concerns. He's slashing 299, 398, 467, filled in admirably while Marte was out and is now continuing to do everything he does well. I just prefer him when he's cheap and sneaky down the bottom of the lineup with that on base percentage. Tremendous option hitting second, though. Lourdes Gurriel, mix and match piece at worst. 8 home runs on the board. Slowly, hopefully normalizing the slash line. 320 xWOBA says we should get there. A 189 ISO. He's been hitting for power, just 12.7% strikeouts, 5.2% walks. A lot of balls in play out of Gurriel. Josh Naylor, tremendous home run bat as well. He's hit 6 on the season, hit 1 the other day, 287, 348, 450 in a tremendous year so far. Love the option for just 45 on DraftKings, just 3,000. He's unfairly priced down from where he was. I like the option. Pavin Smith at 4,000, 2,800 with outfield eligibility, which is ideal on FanDuel. That's how I'm going to replace Marte, I think. 10.25 in the home run model. Over 158 plate appearances. He is fulfilling the potential that we saw all along. High strikeout, but tons of walks. Tons of premium contact, 12.8% barrels, 44.2% hard hits, slashing 301, 411, 481. Standout for on base and run creation for this team, 152 WRC plus so far. Excellent, cheap option. It sucks that he's a positional conflict on DraftKings with Naylor. They need to give him outfield eligibility. Gabriel Moreno, 34-28. Excellent on-base option from the catcher spot. He's hit 4 home runs, 277, 338, 411. Creating runs 10% better than average. A great way to fill catcher at 3,400 against Mike Burrows. Alec Thomas, Jordan Lawler. You get Jordan Lawler for the dead min price on DraftKings at second base. That's fantastic. Only 14 completely empty plate appearances so far. Dude's got a great prospect pedigree, a lot of good minor league numbers. I continue to have faith despite 7 strikeouts in 14 plate appearances. 3 positions for 22 on FanDuel. All that still applies. The reason we're excited about the Diamondbacks is the home run downside that Mike Burrows comes with. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we talked about it extensively before his most recent start, in which he gave up 2 homers. We're seeing a ton of it translate through the model. This is meaningless because it came in 5 innings in 1 start, but he was bad in that start, and he's going to be bad in this one. Vegas agrees at near 5.57 implied total for Arizona. Corbin Burns is facing one of the most gettable lineups in baseball. Their combination of high strikeout rates and poor performance. The fact that only one guy in the entire lineup, and it's O'Neal Cruz, has anything better than a 95 WRC plus. The fact that the 8-man below him is at a 73 WRC plus on average across the full 8-man is concerning. Some of that includes Spencer Harwitz at an unfair 38 plate appearances. He actually is a good hitter. Hasn't been yet, but should be. But it's really the O'Neal Cruz show and not much else this year. I think Brian Reynolds eventually rounds into expected form or thereabouts. He's got solid barrel rate, hard hits in line with where expectations are. Strikeouts are just way up. I think that normalizes over time. 346 xWOBA kind of agrees with that. O'Neal Cruz hit the hardest baseball in StatCast history the other day at 123 miles an hour or so. Monster home run option, 11 homers, 18 steals. Tremendous DFS contributor, a 401 xWOBA. He's an absolute superstar, fulfilling the breakout season that we called, even though he was already very good. Needs to come up a little bit in the average department over time for more people to really respect it, but 61.8% hard hits, 25.5% barrels up from 15.7, 54.9, continuing his ridiculous trajectory. Harwitz at 28-26 does have a good hit tool in here despite the bad 38 plate appearances. A little bit of pop that showed through last year, 7.4% barrels and 51.9% hard hits. He's playable if you're going to this team. Joey Bart, Alexander Canadio are 2 more playable bats, double-digit barrels and an extremely high barrel rate out of Canadio over his 107 plate appearances. Neither guy has seen much, 241, 242. Bart has at least gotten on base so far, 337 xWOBA, a 350 xWOBA out of Canadio. Shows you where the quality is and that there is true quality there. They make very high-end contact. They're just facing Corbin Burns today, so it's a little bit difficult to get to that contact. Then you get Adam Frazier, Tommy Pham, underwhelming Ke'Bryan Hayes despite all his frequency of contact and reasonable hard hit numbers. The results just always leave something to be desired. And then IKF, who is just a singles hitter and a low strikeout guy at best. All of that is to say that I love Corbin Burns at 97, 93. We just last night succeeded in this spot with Ryan Nelson. Corbin Burns, despite some underwhelming numbers for him so far this year, is better than Ryan Nelson still. Pretty confident. 2.73 ERA, but a 3.75 xFIP, nearly a 24% strikeout rate. Too many walks. The strikeouts in line with last year, but obviously down from 2 years ago and way down from back in 2022. Maybe he's not that guy anymore, but he's more than good enough to strike out 7, 8, 9, 10 against this team. 10 is obviously stretching it, but 7, 8, something like that. Love the upside for Burns. Last time out, struck out 8 over 7 innings against the Dodgers. If you can do that to the Dodgers, you can put 10 on this team. Faced Colorado, struck out 10 Rockies. That's a comparable enough team. I'll take that. Love the upside. It's been excellent over his last 7 starts. Just had a couple slightly bumpy ones early in the season, but is very, very high end for the money. Diamondbacks bats. Corbin Burns, but that could easily go either way. He's one of the top pitching options on the slate. Don't really want Mike Burrows, even at the DraftKings price. I see too much downside here. And don't really want Pirates bats, but if you do it, it's O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, and then your favorite couple of these guys. And that's about it, which is good because it's 6:20 and I got to actually put these projection updates up on the website. That is your pitching board. I'll spare you guys me going through it one more time. Whoever's left watching this show, 27 people still here. Appreciate all you guys. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Let me punch out of here so I can get the site updated. Love the top few high-priced options on the board. Tyler McGill against the White Sox, I love. Cade Horton, especially at that FanDuel price against the Rockies, really like. Then it gets problematic and sticky down here where all these guys right in that group are the same. And then everybody down below like Mitchell Parker is at best problematic. So good luck. If you need more depth than that, go back. You got about 3 hours of show to go through. Appreciate you guys. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share those results when you do. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for more. Later, gang.